Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's good to see you all.
Walaikum salam.
Salam.
Instructor William, do you have an opportunity to open this up really quickly? Get the
Yeah,
frequencies going?
yes, I do. I'm moving around at the Loudermilk Conference Center here in the wonderful city of Atlanta. Uh, this opportunity that I've engaged here is one that I had not reservations about at all, but I took what I call the power to pause. I took a moment when I was invited to participate. The attention is being directed upon uh, mother-son relationship and the wound that most men, especially African American men, have experienced as a result of that very, very important bond that's established at the beginning of our life experience in this carbon 12 suit. We call it a human body. Uh, and uh, so it's important that we have a presence here, not only a presence in terms of us representing the fitra, the patterns that Allah has established in creation itself, and also in us. But not only important for us to represent that, uh, but also to uh, be present here representing the work that we're doing in Nunetics. It's extremely important, as I'm reminded of what Imam W. Muhammad said back in 1975 when he just made the very bold and very profound statement, the words make people. And what we're doing, we're giving flesh and bones and all of the rest what's needed to have those words stand up in the world and be present and be counted. That's the work of Nunetics. So let's start out as we usually do and take a few moments and show some appreciation. Just think deeply of at least 10 things that you have to be grateful for. If it's at all possible, take a writing utensil of some kind, pen, pencil, whatever, crayon, doesn't matter, chalk, and make the inscription, if you will. Take your hand and move it, and that registers in your brain, believe it or not, when you make those kind of movements. So it's registering in your consciousness when you make those movements with your hand. So do that. Again, think deeply. Don't do shallow thinking. It's less just like breathing. When you breathe deeply, all the way down and let your diaphragm expand, that's the normal fitra-based way to breathe. But if you do it like we've been conditioned to do, and do shallow breathing, what it does is telling your brain, your consciousness, that there's danger present, and it's a different kind of experience totally. So think deeply, breathe deeply, and share with the rest of who you are and what you are at least 10 things that you have to be grateful for. And what that does, that sets the tone, that establishes the fitra-based frequency for you, not only individually, but collectively, to allow yourself to be elevated to the highest frequency possible for you as a creature that's been described as being human. And I like to really clarify that and not only identify in terms of my being human, but in the essence of what I am. I like to use the term human excellence. Again, another term that was not necessarily created by W.D. Muhammad, but he certainly established it and created a place for it in my mind and consciousness. So I like to focus and begin even the thanks, just thanking the source creator for giving us uh, our our presence in this created order, and with our essence being that thing that we're calling right now human excellence. So that's number one for me in terms of thanks, to identify that, to articulate that, uh, and let that be the foundation for everything else that I build upon. It's that human excellence. Of course, the source creator designed it life for human beings to establish the life in community. And if that community is established, if it's built upon human excellence, then it will be an environment that supports the best that's in that seed of life that desires for the full expression of itself. And that environment allows it to be nurtured and cultivated and be self-expressed. So we thank Allah, Source Creator, for uh, for being present. We thank the Source Creator for your presence, and because you don't have to be here, I don't have to be here, but I choose to, and that's uh, after human excellence. I would say being given the opportunity and the power, if you will, to choose, and I choose to be present. Not only present in terms of the environment that I find myself in, but acknowledging the presence at all times of the source creator. Yes. And it's a beautiful thing to just to have be an environment of human beings, and that's where we are today. That acknowledge themselves as human beings that have a desire within ourselves to connect with other human beings in our human excellence. And that's why we're here. So we have something in store for you, of course, a presentation by our international instructor, Benjamin Bilal. And we have another treat, kind of a warm-up by one of our master instructors. And I don't know if she's ready, but if she is indeed ready to share what Allah has gifted her with you, with us, and with wherever Allah allows that frequency to be carried throughout our home, the planet Earth. We have a very special presentation by Ina. And Baina, if you're ready, we are ready for you.
Alhamdulillah. Can everybody hear me? Am I centered?
Yes, we can hear you and you're centered.
You're looking great.
Well, I really, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Lunetics Institute. And people have been waiting for my presentation for a minute. And inshallah, I hope that I'm going to do a fairly good job. So I'm going to say Bismillah. And my topic was supposed to be Al Hikmah, and as the antidote to Ashar. So I want to explain that Hikmah functions and acts as the exact antidote to intellectual abandonment, or Ashar. Just imagine your mind is like a wonderful high-tech spaceship. Inside, you have a special built-in compass called your fitra, and your natural pure heart that already knows right from wrong, just like a little bird naturally knows how to fly. And when Allah created you, Allah gave you an amazing engine called the akal, your intellect, and thinking power to explore the universe, to learn and make great choices. What is hikmah? The master blueprint and antidote. What is ashar? It's like a computer glitch. Sometimes people get lazy or stubborn. They close their ears and refuse to think and ignore their pure fitra. And when this happens, their mind's engine breaks down and fills up with static and trash. The Quran calls the ashar, that computer glitch that I said, it's like when someone throws away their thinking power and acts like they don't even have a brain. It's like having a superpower and closing and um, choosing to keep your eyes closed so you might walk straight into a wall. So, what is hikmah? It's the master blueprint and antidote. Hikmah is wisdom. It's the ultimate upgrade and medicine that fixes us. The word hikmah comes from a root that means a bridle, like the gentle leather strap used to guide a strong, beautiful horse safely down the path. Hikmah is a master blueprint that takes your smart thinking and teaches you how to steer it.
Yeah.
Instead of letting your brain run wild into trouble, Hikmah helps you to listen to your pure fitra, your heart's true compass, put everything in its right place, like knowing when to speak, when to listen, and how to be kind. Turns what you know into super good actions. I hope I don't go over my 15 minutes. The Quran teaches us that when Allah, when the Quran teaches us that when you ask Allah for hikmah, Allah gives you a massive treasure of goodness because it keeps your mind awake, bright, and flying high. And the way it was always meant to do, to be. Hikmah as a divine legacy and gift of guidance. In Surah 31, Ayah 12, Surah Luqman, and we had certainly given Luqman wisdom, al hikmah. Be grateful to Allah, and whoever is grateful only for the benefit of himself. As a linguistic note, the inclusion of Surah Luqman is profound and absolutely necessary, passing down because he passed down foundational, practical life logic to his son. And the very first of the hikmah uh, inventory here is shukr, or gratitude, recognizing reality correctly and placing appreciation where it abundantly belongs. Now, building upon the foundation of hikmah wisdom as the ultimate master blueprint that restores the intellect, the Quran reveals that true wisdom does not just sit passively in the mind. It yields profound life-altering fruits. Gratitude, a shukr. And we had certainly given Luqman wisdom, al hikmah. Be grateful to Allah and lillahi. And whoever is grateful only for the benefit of himself. That's 31:12. The fruit explained, the very first fruit of hikmah is shukra, the gratitude, recognizing reality correctly and placing appreciation where it fundamentally belongs. I'm going to cut it short. Al Hikmah, I'm going to give you the triliteral root analysis from the Corpus Quran. The letters are Ha, Ka, Mi. And it occurs, Hikmah is in the Quran 20 times. And the core meaning for Hikmah is restraining sound judgment and establishing order. The function is the ultimate cognitive governance and antidote against chaos, and ashar, or sheen, sheen, ra. It occurs about 31 times. It occurs 31 times in the Quran, and the core meaning inherently means that it's something that's harmful and malicious or destructive to reality, and it functions. Its function is to represent moral decay and the consequence of lost intellect. And Allah calls those people who don't use their intellect um, the worst. He said, indeed, the worst of living creatures in the sight of Allah are the deaf and dumb who do not use intellect. Surah Al-Anfal. That's Surah 8, Ayah 22. And again, the linguistic breakdown, Shara al-Dawab refers directly to the lowest manifestation of shar, harm and corruption. And layakiluna, lam, kaf, ein, means represents a deliberate suspension of logic and rational processing. And the core link, it means that you disengage your intelligence, your intellect instantly. And that places an individual into a category of the shar. And the reason why I chose to include a shar with hikmah is that there are some people out here who you just cannot, they're just deaf and dumb. They don't want to think. They don't want to use their intellect, and that's what a lot of them is. Okay, thank you so much, and I enjoyed my presentation. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. That was so wonderful that I'm going to, based on your time next Sunday, I'm going to invite you back to do a part 2 of this subject. I think people, I can speak for them, I believe that they truly enjoyed this meal, and I don't want to snatch it away from them and not give the promise that the meal will return this time in another 7 days or so, if that's okay with you.
Okay, Instructor Bilal, thank you so much. Shukran.
All right.
Before I leave, Instructor, I want to put my little bit in.
Please. How can you help it?
I just did what you just said, man. That was awesome. It was excellent. Yeah. And it was, I mean, it was about as perfect as you can get, just in terms of the frequency. Frequency, and I know it's certainly registered with me. And, when you take what Allah has given us and you act on it, which is what she just did, she did the thinking. She allowed herself to go deeply within herself. She allowed herself to be guided by a source creator, and she delivered. She delivered, and she delivered in a way where it was so pure until someone had to be an absolute idiot, fool. I can't think of the term.
Well, I thought of it. He called them fools in the Quran.
Yeah. To miss what she just shared, on all levels,
it's great.
On the emotional level, on the level of the intellect, captured all 3 parts of the brain, starting with the instinctive part, going all the way, up to that thinking, rational, creative part, the prefrontal lobe, and it just captured, for me, it captured the essence of what truth is, the essence of in this creation, and that is to for us to allow ourselves to reflect that. Allah has graced us to be able to receive it, and she received it well, and she reflected it back. So I just want to put that little bit in.
Well, thank you. We're going to let a few other people.
Thank you so much.
We're going to let a few other people chime in who would like to respond also, beginning with Arlene Elamine, who has a hand raised.
Assalamu alaikum. I really appreciated Sister Naeem's presentation. The only thing that I would have said was she could have given the meaning of shar earlier. I think I knew the meaning of it, but to have that to compare with what she was saying about Hikmah would have been better received at closer to the beginning of her presentation. That was
Point
it.
well taken. Point well taken.
Thank
For
you.
those of us who
Thank you.
knew, that flew above our heads because we knew, so we didn't even think
Yeah.
about it. But thank Allah that you caught it and you brought it
Inshallah.
up. And from now on, anybody who's doing a presentation, if you're using the Quran or the Arabic language or any other language, yeah, be sure, because we're speaking to a mostly English-speaking audience, to immediately give the meaning of the Arabic word that you're choosing. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Thank you so much.
she's gonna be like Betty Wright. She's gonna be the cleanup woman this time, next Sunday.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Inshallah.
Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else in our audience who would like to
Yeah,
give their
Muhammad.
observations? Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah, I just would like to add on to the spirit of the presentation, because we talk about education, we talk about knowledge, we talk about college, but based on what she was talking about, the cultivation of the intellect. See, that's a very high concern. They don't talk about that. They just talk about being educated, but the cultivation of the intellect is a high order. And she was pointing to that, and I appreciate that. Praise be to Allah.
Thank
Well,
Assalamu
you.
you
Thank you
used a
so
very
much.
important word there, Muhammad, and that is cultivation. Because most of us don't realize that when Allah speaks about the garden in the Quran,
Yeah.
that he's actually speaking about the intellect. And the intellect needs to be cultivated, or else it will wither like anything else that's supposed to be growing, but somehow the growth is interfered with and becomes a retardation instead of a growth and development. That's the issue. So you're using the exact correct term, and what Baina had to say is what sparked that thought in him
And so
to say what he said. Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
I just want to respond back to Sister Arlene, because she said I didn't explain the SHAR in the beginning, but I did. I referred to it as a computer glitch.
Yeah, but what we want you to do in the future is just give the more uh, direct and correct, I hate to say dictionary meaning, but you got to
Okay.
connect with the people where they are. You have to be able to connect your frequency with
Well,
the
this was my
frequency that
third
they're
grade.
on.
This was my third grade presentation that I did. I was trying to decide which one to do, and I decided on this one. But even doing this one, it didn't quite hit the mark. You,
We're not gonna talk about what didn't hit the mark. You don't
I
be
don't
that
think
judgmental.
it
It was
did.
great. Wait until you know what?
Okay.
I never
Yeah.
comment on my lectures until I get a chance to listen back to them. Because as you're giving it, you're not
Mhm.
catching all of the things that you're really saying and some of the deeper moments of information
Well, I had so much
that you're
difficulty.
delivering.
I had so much difficulty trying to decide what to do. So I tried to combine two of the three presentations that I did, because I didn't know, I didn't have time to see if they were going to be 15 minutes or 5 minutes or
Well, and
whatever.
how many of us knew that? But what I'm saying to you is that it was so wonderful in my ears that I decided automatically while listening to you that there needs to be a follow-up immediately.
All right.
So prepare for that in the next 7 days.
All right.
One,
Thank you so much.
All
one more
right.
thing. One more thing. One more thing. Uh, uh, based on presenting any understanding of knowledge, what you have to do is discipline yourself. I'm not saying that you didn't do that. You have to streamline it. You have to streamline it, and just keep it going in the same direction. So you just have to be very careful, to do it. Just streamline it so you don't go too far to the right, too far to the left. But at the same time, you want to present a system of knowledge and understanding to help the people who's listening to you.
Well, I wanted to do a PowerPoint, but I was just too busy to do it.
Yeah, I understand that.
Well,
Inshallah.
try it for next Sunday. Maybe it'll work for next Sunday.
Inshallah.
All right.
Inshallah.
But we
Instructor,
thank you. Okay.
I'm
Yes.
getting ready to leave, but let me just share this
Yeah.
little bit
Sure.
that might help us, not just her, but us. The word that Muhammad used, cultivation, that triggers something in my mind, and well, you probably already know where I'm going with this. But when the farmer thinks cultivation, first thing comes to mind is preparing to put the seed in the ground, you know, and so you have to prepare the soil or the soul, you know. But what the farmer does, the farmer examines the soil that he or she intends to put the seed in, and to make sure that it's loose enough so that it can receive the air that it needs, the moisture that it needs, even that the nutrients that surround the seed in the soil is able to feed that seed. What the farmer will do is go in and break the soil up with a spade, with a shovel, with some kind of device to break it up and turn it over. And some farmers will go out and cultivate the land to break it up and turn the soil over 2 or 3 times before they start putting seeds in the ground. So that kind of thinking and delivery in terms of being able to take even the idea of the computer glitch, it's the same kind of thing, you know. So some people can relate to that language environment. Some of the third graders, I'm sure, can relate to that. But then if you tie that into the FITRA directly in terms of working in the environment of the plant life, now it really kind of brings it down where everybody can relate to it.
Thank you so much for that vast, abundant goodness.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you, sis. And
we're going to give her a chance to turn that soil over again in 7 days.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
I'll have
so, all right. We're going to go to one of our co-hosts, our other co-host, Nawa. And I know she has a comment or a question, but there are a couple of other people in the chat room who want to speak also. So she'll take it from here.
Awesome. I'm going to give it to Bashir first. Bashir's hand was up for a while. Okay. So go ahead, Bashir.
Okay, thank you very much. I made 3 notes in part of my appreciation that Brother Safir brought up a little bit earlier. And 3 of the 3 points that I took down while Baina was speaking was, number 3 was relevance and understanding. And that means to oneself as with others. Relevance with understanding to oneself as with others. That's the first one. Second one is preparedness and well-being, along with comfort to oneself as well as with others consistently. And the third one is comparative thinking is most relevant, so that I'm not just thinking about myself, I'm also thinking about the group, possible group thought also. And with that, I'd like to give the platform back and say thank you very much.
Excellent commentary.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nawa, you can take it from here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Bashir. That comment that you made, just like in your own words. So that says a lot about the presentation that Dana did, because it's like what came to mind when I was listening to what you said. So that's important. It's not just like regurgitating information verbatim, but it's how is one taking it in and then bringing it back out. So that was a good comment. Thank you. I wanted to just say, I was going to speak to enjoying the analogies that you made about Hikmah being as if a master blueprint, as well as an anecdote, and then also Al-Shar as a computer glitch. We're in the technology age, and a lot of us who were born during that time period maybe would understand that analogy pretty quickly. And what I did like about it is that those things can happen. Things can get corrupted, whether it's in society or within a technological system. And then the blueprint is there whenever like your computer is down, you're trying to figure it out, you're trying to get rid of a bug or something, and it's just whatever you're doing just doesn't seem to work. What you have to do a factory reset. And the reset is usually the thing that gets everything running back as smoothly as possible. So when you utilize Hikmah as that was really clear to me. Comment on the presentation itself. I thought it was very solid. Your cadence when you're speaking and your pacing was very easy to understand. And also it helped to get a picture painted. You didn't have a presentation, but I was able to see because you utilize descriptive terms to help us to see what is Hikmah. So I thought that was strong and you put it in your own words. Also like the references that you made, I even noted it and then you noticed your references twice. Surah 31:12, for instance, Luqman, the first time you said it, Surah Luqman, and then the ayah, I didn't hear it the first time, but you had repeated it at the end of it. So I think that was really good. Just kind of presentation etiquette to make sure that people pick something up in case they missed it the first time. So now I can go back to that surah, which I already opened up the page for. And also you were able to marry in the numetic breaking down, you didn't go letter for letter. However, you did give us the root word and the root letters. And then you were able to give us the, I don't want to use the word definition, but the meaning of the terms through giving us those letters. So then it's easier for us to look up. So I have my page open, I have the dictionary of the Holy Quran. So I was able to pull that up really easily with how you broke that down. I just thought it was a very solid presentation. Sometimes we always think that we have to do something super long, or sometimes we always try to force us to condense things. But I think that this was like a really good length. You got a lot of good information in there, but then you didn't overwhelm anyone. So it is definitely worthy and needed to have a part 2, 3, and 4, even if you can't go that far, which I know you can, but yeah. We want to just give you that latitude to do that. But overall, I think it was a very solid presentation. And now that Arlene made her comment about possibly giving those meanings earlier on, I do think that that could help for the person who's not familiar with the words, or even for us who might have forgotten, like, oh yeah, I remember shut up, but I kind of forgot what it was. So maybe if you tossed that in there earlier on, we would have made those connections and understood what, because you were making a comparative kind of analysis, Hikmah versus Shara. So besides that, I just thought it was a great presentation. I'm really excited to hear what the future holds moving forward from you.
Okay, thank you so much, Noah. That's so
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you.
Of course. And now it's Arlene has her hand up, and surprisingly, Karima's quiet. Maybe she missed it. But we're gonna leave you there, Karima. I'm not putting you out there. But
I just
Arlene,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
say, I wanted to say that you did not miss the mark. I was just only asking you to clarify a little earlier. That's all.
Agreed. I think it was just constructive. Yes. Oh, Karima, go ahead.
Karima heard everything, but I didn't want to step on Baina shine because her presentation was excellent. But I also wanted to speak to Brother Williams' comment from his outing. I'm going to say outing because I can't think of the word right now. But I wanted to say, Baina, you did an excellent job. And you should, like Brother Instructor is saying, to next time you do it, it's going to be a much better presentation because you're going to be used to saying what you're saying. But yeah, solid.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. What I wanted to speak to, and this is not exactly with Baina's subject, but it was about the weekend that we had this weekend. Adila, one of our cohorts, and Sister Quran, Shakir, they spoke on womb, hair, presentation. They spoke for about almost 2 hours. They gave us all the information about womb. So, he was basically what Brother William was saying today was covered yesterday in the presentation about the womb. And Adila also has an article in the journal, the Muslim Journal article that she presented her presentation. About 8 months ago. I say it was printed in the journal from July, so that's available. in also, and I told her I was gonna let the class go on Zoom. I also met some of the Zoom females. What's her name? Shakfika, Adila. I met those who we see on Zoom, but sometimes we don't even see their face. But when we hear the names right and then we connect the names with the face, it was just a beautiful sister gathering. And I enjoyed it. And also the follow-up was yesterday. We stayed there all day, had a beautiful time with just sisters from New Jersey, from New York, from, almost like every state that we could think of, except Washington. Washington, not one Muslim sister were there. And that was surprising. That was very surprising. But we had an excellent time, and there was many, we had books on womb. And my daughter just called me this morning, says, Mommy, my friend is having a baby. Can I have that book? I said, well, I'll speak to a dealer and we'll get you one because I want my book for myself. So it's called Mothering the Mother. And it's an excellent book. I guess went a little crazy with my books yesterday, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It was a marvelous weekend with just sisters. Okay, thank you. So yes.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Exciting. Sounds really exciting. Who else? Okay, we have a few new people in here. I just want to welcome you all to the Nunetics class. If this is your first class that you've attended, once again, like I said, Salaam alaikum and welcome. A big thing I want to keep note of, I know sometimes we all so accustomed to saying Assalamu alaikum because we hear it all the time, and we grew up saying that for years and years. However, in Nunetics, what we learned is we utilize the term Salamun alaikum because the ultimate peace is only held by Allah, and we don't have that ability to do that. But it is our obligation to maintain that peace. So we say, Salamun alaikum. So welcome to this session. And you just kind of got like a bit of a crash course of what we got going on in here, how we operate thinking in frequencies, because Allah speaks to us vis-a-vis frequencies. And also you got probably a little bit of a crash course on our close attention to the fitra, or the systems in Allah's nature, and how we should read that and how we should engage in that. And we got a little bit of that from our amazing master instructor, William Safir, who had to jump off because he's at an event. And the first thing that kind of came to his mind was about a farmer. How does a farmer assess the soil? And soil is consonantally connected with soul. And what I mean by that is you hear some letters in there, they're very similar. Soil, soul, you hear the sound, you hear the O sound, you hear an O-ish type sound. So all of those sounds are frequencies, and they're related or have related meanings because they're connected. So the soul, which we all possess, because you can't say that we are truly human without a soul. And the soil, we absolutely need. That's what gives us all of this abundant life that we either eat or we are a part of. So when we think about agriculture, when we think about growing plants, that's how we should think about growing our human life, to be true humans and to be more in lockstep with Allah's frequency. We need to build our soul, but as well as our intellect. And those two need to work together. And both of those things work together well because they need water. Your soil needs water, so does your soul. And when you have that water, so to speak, you have what we say here in human terms, your morality. So you can't have just intellect or thoughts without your morality. Those two things isolated could lead to what our instructor, Baina presented us on, that computer glitch. We could go wrong, we can go astray. So with that said, I'm going to move over. I want to say welcome to you all. And we're going to get into the next segment, which is something that we've incorporated more recently, which is our health segment. And it's mostly about the human body, but also how it connects to our human life. And the presenter for that is our lovely, she's a master instructor, beautiful spirit, and very, very wise woman, Mrs. Benjamin Bilal, also known as Karima Bilal. And she will be presenting for us today. Please forgive me, Karima. I must have missed the memo on what it is for today, but I will allow you to do that. And everybody, let's just welcome Ms. Karima Bilal.
Thank you ever so much. Ever so much. And while it's on my mind, I want to give a hearty shout out to Sister Baina for a wonderful presentation. You might think that because I'm married to Instructor Bilal, that I automatically have the understanding of Arabic that a lot of them have, and I don't. I don't. I'm still learning just as you are. And when I heard your presentation, sister, I learned something that I did not know before. And you presented it in an extremely digestible form. I love digestible forms of information. And I want to just give you a very high mark on that. However, you will interpret a high mark, I think it was excellent. I wrote it in the chat. I say it for all who are listening. You did a good job. And I look forward to hearing more of it from you. I liked the way you said it. I liked what you said. And you did good, kid. Praise is due. And let me bring us all the way up to the beginning. And hopefully you will see what it is I'm going to talk to you about. What if mental illness is really mental health? What if mental illness is really mental health? And this is extremely important and a topic that became relevant to me because I'm taking my recertification exam. I became a a brain health coach, maybe 6 years ago. And I didn't really do as much with it as I might have because I was fascinated by diabetes. And then I learned as I'm taking my research that when you look at brain health, you're looking at all of it. You cannot have a healthy brain unless you cannot have healthy life unless you have a healthy brain. And you can't have a healthy brain unless all the systems in your body, in particular, your metabolic self, is intact and functioning at optimum efficiency. So I'm rereading two things. Number one, the recertification information and a book that Daniel Amen, who is the mentor of the program I'm taking, and the author of several books, one of several books, and of those books is The End of Mental Illness. The End of Mental Illness. And if there's one book that you might choose to read, I would suggest that you read this one. It encompasses so many of the topics that are included in the others. So it's kind of a general overview. And then he wrote another one, which I'll refer to in the resources section of my presentation. And you'll get, I cannot emphasize enough how important this is because all of us know someone who is struggling with what is called mental illness. And there's a huge stigma attached to that diminishes people's self-esteem, causes people to be labeled as outcasts and different. It actually engenders fear in people. And this gentleman, Daniel Amen, is a neuropsychiatrist. And the difference between the two is a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who has a specialty in psychiatry. A psychologist is one who studies psychology, behavior. Very different. Psychiatrists can prescribe medications. Psychologists, to my knowledge, cannot. Psychiatrists, in Dr. Amen's purview, deal with the organ that he treats, which is the brain, which is the primary residence of your mind. Think about that one. Where does your mind live? It lives in your brain. That's one of the places that it lives in, at least in this realm. We won't go too far into the weeds at the gate, but play with that one. It forms the basis of what I'm about to say. I wish I could make this screen, this part, smaller. No. Let me try one other thing. Hey, there we go. Hope you guys can still see that. All right. So I want you to remember the basics. As you know, whenever I speak, I want to reinforce over and over and over again until it's an automatic reflexive thought. The basics of health, which I learned from Dr. John Tilden. He wrote a book called Toxemia. I'll reference that if you're interested in it. I can get that for you. But in this book, he made points that have made everything else I learned in medicine relevant. And that is that every organism is created to exist in a specific environment. And when you give that environment to the organism thrives. I'm sitting here, and in front of me, which you cannot see, are my plants. I have lots of plants. I'm in love with them. And when they have the right soil, the right amount of water, the right amount of light, they grow. And I have some of them, specifically snake plants. Some of them are 3 and 4 feet high. They're huge because I give them what they want and what they need when they need it. So when you give that organism the environment that it needs, it thrives. However, the converse is also true. Deprived of that environment, the organism either adapts, it sickens, or it dies. When I miss watering the plants that need to be watered frequently, they begin to wither. They wither as an adaptation. They wish to conserve strength and energy and pull away from the light in order to conserve and use the water that they have. And if I wait too long to do that, it will reach a point where it cannot recover and it dies. Remember that. The same is true for your brain. The same is true for your brain. Give your brain what it needs. Provide the environment that your brain was designed to exist in, to function optimally in, and it will thrive. Your brain thrives, your life thrives. Deprive your brain of what it needs. I'll pick oxygen as an example. A brain deprived of oxygen begins to lose its vitality, nerve cells begin to die after about 30 seconds, irreparably after a minute, and death follows. Brain death follows in 3 to 4 minutes. So no matter which part of the body you look at, or use the FITRA as this course, as Nunetics outlines and emphasizes all the time. Look around you in the FITRA and see the environment in which Allah has provided for all of his creations. And you will see the ones that thrive. You will see the ones that wither and die. We are part of the fitra. So this presentation is all geared towards maximizing and optimizing the environment that perhaps the most important organ in your body requires in order for you, us, me, to thrive. Your brain is no different. Your brain weighs about 3 pounds. It's only about 2% of your body's weight. However, the brain requires 20% of the oxygen and the blood flow in the human body. When the blood vessels that bring the blood, the nutrients to the brain are damaged, the brain begins to either adapt, sicken, or you die. But it's just that simple. You'd be amazed at how people that say they are experts in the mind do not address this fact. It's astonishing that psychiatrists are the only specialty in medicine, the only doctors that do not examine the organ that they treat. You go to a heart doctor, cardiologist, you expect the cardiologist to scan your heart. That's an EKG, that's a stress test. There's many other different tests that they do, gallium scans, etc. You expect them to examine the organ of the heart to tell you what's wrong with your heart. You break a bone, you expect the orthopedist to take an x-ray to tell you what's wrong with the bone. Is it broken? Is it osteoporotic? That means, is it coming apart, demineralizing? You expect that. Is it dislocated? You expect a specialist to examine that organ to tell you what's wrong with it, structurally or functionally. Not so in psychiatry. Psychiatry is based on symptoms. And they put a bunch of symptoms together into what's called a symptom cluster. And based on that, they guess. Interesting. Your body uses about 20 to 25% of your body's glucose consumption. And we know this is very important because when you do not eat, you cannot think straight. Blood sugar drops, you get confused, really confused. If a person's blood sugar drops too low, they become delirious. And interesting that in the fitra, the way, the excellent, elegant way that the source creator made the human body, there are multiple systems that spring into action when the blood sugar drops too low in order to preserve life. When we speak of gratitude therapy, that's one of the things you can thank the creator for, that without my conscious knowledge or awareness, the body makes sure that this organ, which controls all the functions in the body, makes sure that it gets its supply off the top. Yeah, amazing, just absolutely amazing. Makes me reverent. The more I study the human body, the more reverent I become. So, what could go wrong? Well, if you do not get sufficient blood flow to your brain, there is a higher risk for mental, which I like to call brain health issues. Think about that. When a person begins to lack blood flow to the brain, example, a person hyperventilates. That's when you start going hyperventilation. Eventually, what will happen, if you do it long enough, you start to feel faint. Why do you start to feel faint? Because body knows you're not getting enough oxygen in to the body to get to the brain. And so what does the body do in its brilliance? It will cause you to lay flat, where you will optimize the blood flow to the brain. Low blood flow is linked with a higher risk of mental health and brain issues. So a healthy heart makes for a healthy brain. Now that's metaphysical as well as purely physical, because if your heart is quote unquote broken, you don't feel right mentally, emotionally. When your heart is happy, you feel happy, which means your brain is happy. And just so that you know, and there's so much information to condense into a small presentation, every thought, take this one to the bank. If you want to write something down, write this one. Your body hears everything you say. Matter of fact, your body hears everything you think. And every thought that you have is manifest in a chemical reaction, a chemical secretion in your body. So when a person thinks sad thoughts, negative thoughts, unproductive thoughts, they begin to feel worse and worse and worse. That's not just happenstance. That is biochemistry. And the converse is true. When you think happy thoughts, when you think positive thoughts, empowering thoughts, your brain releases feel-good chemicals. That's your dopamines, that's your serotonins, that's your oxytocin, your bonding chemicals, and it makes you feel good. Interesting, is it not? A damaged heart makes for mental and brain health issues. And I'll show you more about that as we go along. Not for nothing, the two leading causes of death, at least worldwide, as a matter of fact, are cardiovascular disease, heart attack, stroke. Interesting, is it not? According to Dr. Amen and SPECT scans, I'll define for you what is a SPECT scan. Single photon emission computerized tomography, abbreviated as SPECT. It is a study of the brain that shows activity in blood flow. So when it shows which parts of the brain get that's a tough one to say, low blood flow, they get low blood flow, and therefore they have decreased activity. When the other parts that are getting hyperactive, you show lots of blood flow activity in the brain. Both of those excesses can be seen with different behavioral, emotional issues. Speaking now specifically about low blood flow, as seen on this scan, which shows the activity, it's either low, it's okay, or it's too high. We see depression with low blood flow, suicide, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, ADD, ADHD, which Dr. Amen says are the same, substance abuse, hoarding disorder. That's an interesting one. I watch a program, a channel on YouTube about hoarding disorder, where a person, the channel is led or hosted by the person who does the cleanup. And one of the things he says consistently is you do not judge people who hoard because it is a mental disorder. It's not just laziness. It's not just sloth. It's a mental disorder, which had those people to have a SPECT scan, we would very likely see low blood flow to certain areas of the brain. Murder. Dr. Amen has published studies, numerous studies, on the brains of murderers and SPECT scans and what he sees consistently in large percentages, enough so that you cannot say it's happenstance, you cannot dispute the findings. He sees low blood flow in the areas of the brain, prefrontal cortex, limbic system, temporal lobe, areas that control impulse, areas that control reasoning, areas that control rage, limbic system, seizure activity. And that makes perfect sense because when people are having seizures, they're not breathing well. Head trauma and more. I have a particular distaste and I don't say hatred because I strive not to hate anything, but I really have very negative feelings about football and soccer in which they butt heads like rams. And Dr. Amen has done multiple studies on how concussions and head trauma, which result in brain injury, influence behavior such that he has a whole program. He scanned the brains of NFL players. And you would be astonished when you read the book, you will be astonished at the effects on their behavior, increased suicide, increased problems with marriage and family relationships. And you can actually see in the brain where the trauma has occurred. It's not just mental. People who have bipolar depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia are more likely to develop cardiovascular disease. It becomes a chicken and egg phenomenon because low blood flow gives you these conditions. And the more of these conditions you have, the more likely your provider, should he or she choose to look, the more likely you are to have cardiovascular disease. And cardiovascular disease decreases blood flow to the brain. So you can see it becomes a vicious cycle. And people with cardiovascular diseases, heart attack, atrial fibrillation, problems with rhythm, problems with contraction, problems with the muscle of the heart, these people are more likely to suffer from depression and dementia. So what are the low blood flow risk factors? A history of stroke. How does that increase the risk? Well, it indicates that the blood vessels are already damaged or vulnerable. Important here to define what is a stroke. What we call a stroke is really what we call a brain attack. It means that either blood flow to the brain has been interrupted by a clot or plaque, a piece of some hardened substances in your arteries that breaks off and travels there, or a blood vessel burst and you have bleeding into the brain. That can happen when a person has an aneurysm or if there's head trauma. Now, the mechanism of that is the skull is hard. It does not expand. So if a person has a bleed into the brain, there's no place for that blood to escape. So it becomes a clot and it presses on the brain, causing decreased blood flow, causing death of the cells. And that's where you get all those subsequent problems. Increase of low blood flow, more than 2 cups of caffeinated drinks per day. And here in the South, everybody's infatuated with sweet tea. Well, sweet tea is caffeinated. Good old iced tea is caffeinated, and they call it sweet tea for a reason. It is sugary beyond what I believe is necessary. The important part here is that caffeine restricts blood flow to the brain. Low blood flow, problems. A history of cardiovascular disease. And by the way, your energy drinks, your Monsters, all those ones, I don't want to use any specific names, but all of those energy drinks that contain high amounts of caffeine decrease blood flow to the brain. So you think that you're alert, but it decreases blood flow. And if it does so to your prefrontal cortex, which is your executor, the administrator, the one that controls impulse, the one that causes you to make right logical decisions, well, you're awake, but you become more and more stupid. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So a lot of those people that do long distance driving, truck drivers, etc., people that work the night shift, they do two bad things for their brain by taking those caffeinated drinks. Number one, generally they are very heavily sweetened. And whether they're sweetened with sugar, they'll say pure cane sugar, or sweetened with honey, or worse yet, sweetened with artificial sweeteners, specifically aspartame or acesulfame potassium, are doing a great disservice to their brain. If you're interested in how sugar damages your brain, go back into the instructor's library and listen to my presentations on diabetes and sugar. And by the way, with a nod and a salute to Sister Baina, SHAR, another meaning for it is latent harm. And it's interesting, she made the connections between computer glitches, which I'm interpreting as a lack of good sense or interruption in good judgment, is from sugar. They even sound the same, SHAR, sugar. And it's latent harm. It's not harm that's immediately noticeable. You don't know how bad sugar is damaging your brain until your doctor chooses to check your insulin levels and your glucose levels, by which point you may already have diabetes. But most people who have diabetes have impaired brain function and are more prone to stroke. Here's one that I'm history of cardiovascular disease. That's when you've had a heart attack, heart failure, or an arrhythmia. In short sentence, an interruption of blood flow to the heart. Heart failure is generally caused by the muscle of the heart becoming ineffective, not effective enough to pump blood as it should, or an arrhythmia, which is the pattern in which the heart beats. When either one of those become deranged, you have a problem with blood flow. This one is especially important to me, and I included something that wasn't in the book. High LDL cholesterol. I think I did a presentation on cholesterol where in today's medical industry, the health industry, cholesterol is a demon. It's highly demonized, and you've got to lower your cholesterol. But what they don't tell you is that the body has to have cholesterol for many vital functions. You have to have it. Without it, you cannot live. The problem is they don't distinguish between or even explain for the average person. It's taken me quite a while as even a medical professional to understand it. Cholesterol has particles. Short sentence. When you take in more carbohydrates / sugars than you need, the body has to do something with it. So it either sends it to your muscles, where it's stored as glycogen, or it sends it to the liver for processing. It cannot stay, sugar at high levels cannot stay in your blood. It is damaging. And if you ever saw it under the microscope, you would see sugar crystals look like lightning bolts. Interesting. Damaging to the blood vessels. So what does the body do? In the liver, it gets packaged, processed into a form where it can be transported through the blood to where it can be stored safely. Fat and blood do not mix. Oil and water do not mix. And so fat, which is called lipo, is bound to a protein, which does travel easily in the blood, and therefore you get lipoproteins. Short sentence, synthesized. So as it's being transported, it can be packaged into large particles or smaller particles. And strangely enough, it's the small particles that do the damage. Think of if you threw a beach ball, which is largely soft, against a wall, it would not make a dent. But if you threw a golf ball, which is small and hard, against the wall, you would make a dent. And so it does with your artery walls. And so we don't just, ideally, in an ideal world with smart practicing practitioners, you don't just measure the presence of the particles, which is the lipid panel. So you get high HDL, quote unquote, good cholesterol, LDL, so and so, bad cholesterol. What you should really measure to find out the whole purpose of it, is it damaging the arteries, is the particle size. And that is it's a short for apolipoprotein, right? Apolipoprotein B. Those are the small particles that damage the arteries. Typically, they don't do that. They do it in executive panels. You get the more expensive blood tests. Yeah, they will measure that. If you're hired by a headhunter agency and you're going to be the CEO of some major corporation where you're going to get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, yeah, when they get your physical, they want to see what is your particle size. They'll even do other tests to see, are your arteries currently blocked? What is your risk for a cardiac event while they're paying you? So you yourself can get tested for this. You can order it. I've gone into that before. In many states, I think there's only about 5 to 7 where you cannot order your own lab tests. The thing is, you got to pay for them. So particle size matters. Small particles, harmful. Levels below, when you get your lipid panel and they show you the LDL, if it's below LDL, believe it or not, below 160, it can increase the risk of depression and aggression. Isn't that something? While cholesterol is being demonized, they don't tell you that below a certain amount, it can actually impair your mental/brain health well-being. Interesting, is it not? More blood flow risk factors: pre-hypertension or hypertension in midlife. This is a topic of discussion. A blood pressure that's considered hypertension or pre-hypertension is blood pressure that is more than 140/80. Top number 140, bottom number 80. And why is that? Because you are pumping blood at high velocity speed and high pressure through vessels that have a limited size. So think of trying to force water from a fire hydrant, which comes out at great pressure, through a garden hose. It's going to back up a lot of pressure. And if it backs up into your heart, now you've got issues. What is not quite as well emphasized, or is emphasized as much, is that low blood pressure in later life also lessens blood flow. This is very important when we're speaking about medications for seniors. It is not widely publicized that if you are aggressive with lowering, if a practitioner is aggressive with lowering blood pressure too fast, then you can cause the person to have decreased blood flow to their brain. And if they have decreased blood flow to their brain, they're going to faint. That's a bad deal if you're driving. That's a bad deal if a patient stands up too soon and their blood pressure drops before it has a chance to normalize and they fall. And when they fall, they sustain a head injury or they break a hip. Bad idea. So what is normal blood pressure, generally considered to be 110 to 130 over 60 to 80. And that's especially true. We should expect that. I would expect to see that in younger people or people who are athletic. But you can be thin, you can be athletic and be stressed out of your mind and still have high blood pressure. So it's not just one thing, it's many things. And believe it, a lot of seniors in later life feel poor. They don't feel well. They feel tired. They feel groggy. They feel typically, I feel like I want to faint when their numbers are at this 110 to 130 number. Lots of evidence to say that if it's in the 140s to 80s range, they're okay. That's their fitra. And other things taken into account, lifestyle, diet, people live quite well with that range. Above that requires some attention. Erectile dysfunction. I wonder how many people associate brain health or impaired brain health with the inability to achieve or maintain an erection. Most people will say, most providers will say that this is certainly due to diabetes. However, they don't look to see, is there impaired blood flow to the brain? Dr. Amen says, and research proves that blood flow problems anywhere likely means blood flow problems elsewhere in the body. So instead of reaching for the blue pill, I and others suggest in the functional integrative medicine space suggest that you look for where the problem is, and that is in blood flow, partly to the brain, because it sends the signals to the genitals for blood flow to increase and thereby gain the erection. Or there's a problem with hormones, testosterone, but even those are regulated by the brain. Interesting. Here's some more risk factors for impaired blood flow. A sedentary lifestyle and limited exercise, especially less than twice per week. This is an area where I, among many people in my age group, and even younger, have work to do because schools have eliminated physical exercise from the curriculum. Think about that and how cruel that is, especially in the younger grades. More than 90% of teenagers do not get the recommended levels. And I wonder, as other professionals have, is that the reason that brain health, mental health issues have skyrocketed in the past 30 years, and the prescribing of mental health drugs has increased dramatically over the past 30 years to even children? Interesting. When I was a child, many years ago, it was punishment if you could not go outside. If you couldn't go outside and play with your friends, oh man, that's the worst thing you could hear was that your friend, he can't come out today because he's on punishment. Oh, and I can remember living close to a daycare center, and twice per day, in the morning and in the afternoon, the doors would open and the children would come surging out and just be screaming for no reason, just for the joy of being able to let out all that pent-up energy. And after that, they have their nap. That's in the morning, after lunch. And then in the afternoon, just before they go home, they did the parents a big favor by allowing the children to go out and exercise and be, especially in places where there are trees and where there is grass. In the cities, the children go out into yards that look like the play yards at prisons. Very interesting. Prediabetes or diabetes. unbeknownst to most, sugar, excess sugar. And it annoys me greatly to hear people say prediabetes. What they're really saying is early onset, early stage diabetes, which they could certainly check by measuring the fasting insulin levels. Good luck asking your provider to do fasting insulin. I urge you to gently, respectfully demand that your provider do that when they check your A1C. What are the two? Well, because insulin and sugar at high levels damage blood vessels. And they delay healing, which is why people who have diabetes frequently will have ulcers, bed sores, frequently have amputations, frequently have blindness. But years, decades before you see the abnormality in blood sugar, you can see rising fasting insulin levels. So before your kidneys get damaged beyond repair, before your eyes, before your heart, all those organs, vital organs, get damaged, you can check with fasting insulin levels decades before it becomes visible in abnormal glucose. Smoking using nicotine, whether it's the patches, whether it's the snuff, whether it's chewing tobacco or actually smoking it, constricts blood vessels, constricts blood flow. Nicotine is poison. It's actual toxic. They use it in bug spray to kill insects on crops. Nicotine, I'm telling you, don't take my word for it. It is poisonous, but it's profitable. Look how long it took to convince the Congress and the government to get the warnings on cigarette products, tobacco products, that it was harmful and dangerous. Look at how the movies, as a matter of fact, if you go on YouTube, you will see commercials in which doctors promoted cigarette smoking. What a world we live in. And a few more. Excessive alcohol use. The Quran says, do not make your prayers, I'm paraphrasing, with your mind be fogged. What causes foggy mind? Alcohol does. Alcohol is a neurotoxin. I believe it's ethyl alcohol in its chemical form. What it does is it lowers blood flow. And if you drink enough and lower your blood flow enough, a person who becomes drunk will black out. How they black out? Because they reach toxic levels in the brain. Brain controls consciousness. And when they wake up the next day, they don't remember what happened. On the way to becoming drunk, they lose muscle coordination. So people stagger when they're intoxicated. Think of that word, intoxicated. They have impaired judgment, driving while intoxicated. Toxin, toxic, poisonous to the brain. We were listening, here's an aside, we were listening yesterday to a video. It's called the Cadillac Chronicles. And they get old school performers and they drive around in a 1975 drop top Cadillac. And they had Lenny Williams, who's now in his 80s. And he's in good form. It's worth seeing. And he wrote a song lately released called She Took My Drawers. She took my drawers. And the song says that he was doing something he should not have done. He blacked out when he woke up, judgment impaired. He woke up to see that she had taken his drawers. She didn't take his wallet. She took his drawers. Serves him right. Sleep apnea. What is apnea? Person stops breathing. Obviously, if you stop breathing, you're going to have lowered blood flow to your brain. And what's significant and tragic is that in patients with Alzheimer's, we see that the areas in the brain that die first are those for Alzheimer's. The areas that suffer the most with low blood flow, Alzheimer's. And so if you snore, get a sleep study. A person can be thin and still snore. And if you get a CPAP machine, it's essentially this thing that you put over your nose and it blows oxygen up your nose. Use it. Find one that's comfortable. Find some form of that, some way that you can lay so that it is comfortable until you can figure out where the problem is that's causing you to stop breathing. Because think about it. If you strangle or choke somebody and you do that long enough to where you're impairing blood flow to the brain, they die. So though no one's choking you or strangling you in your sleep, the effect is the same and you lose brain cells. So if you have these things, if you've been diagnosed with that, get the machine, get over the ego, get over how you don't like it, may not feel right, but it feels even worse to have problems with your brain. And so what's a body to do? Here are the strategies that can help you increase blood flow to your brain, have a healthier brain, have a better mind and life. First, care about your blood vessels. It should be important to you, to us, that you have healthy blood vessels, that you have good blood flow to your brain. And one of the things that you can ask yourself, something that I have done, is when I get ready to do something I know is not good for me, one of the things that helps me maintain good sense is I say, is this thing that I'm about to do going to harm my brain or help my brain? And if my desire, which it is to have a healthy brain, is what I'm about to eat going to be consistent with that behavior, with having a healthy brain? And when I can do that, along with looking at the ingredients on the thing, I can usually decide, I'll put it down most of the time. Avoid anything that decreases blood. Notice this consonantal connections here. Notice how difficult it is to say bruh and blah right after each other. Brain blood flow. Avoid anything that decreases blood flow to your brain. We talked about those. That's your nicotines, etc. If you think that you have this impaired blood flow, get help for it. If you're at risk for heart attack or stroke, get help for it. If you have a waist, as many of us do, myself included, in a woman that's greater than 35 inches, you need assistance because that is the beginnings of central obesity is one of the markers for quote unquote insulin resistance to diabetes. If your blood pressure is high while you're waiting to change your diet and your lifestyle, which are the causes of such, take the medicine. Research the medicine, ask for whatever guidance you may need to put your soul at rest about taking it, but take what you have to take because the consequences of leaving it untended are much worse. You cannot have impaired blood flow to your brain, not for long. Hydrate better. Our brains are our whole body is largely made of water. Very important to maintain hydration. And I'm saying water, not sweet tea, not soda, not juice, water. And we were talking about gratitude. Give thanks, as I do, many times during the day for the presence of clean water, for indoor plumbing that brings water from wherever the reservoirs are that collect it into the house. I can remember going south as a child, and we had to tote. We didn't just carry, we had to tote water from the well back to the house. And the water from our municipal areas where you live, your municipal water supply, while it may not be exquisite, is infinitely better than the majority of the places in India and Africa where people die of waterborne diseases. Gratitude. All those who say America and United States is a bad place, these are people I suggest have not visited other parts in the world. We are blessed here. You could not rent an apartment anywhere in the United States that does not have running water. That's expected. Any place that you're going to rent or any plans that you might submit to the county for approval for building a house has got to demonstrate clean water supply separate from wastewater/sewage. Very interesting. Gratitude for the small things. Eat mostly plants. One does not have to become totally vegan, but eating mostly plants is very, very good for health. And as a matter of fact, I maintain that that is how our ancestors of all kinds, those who were enslaved as well as those who were not, whatever your ethnicity is, the reason that they lived as long as they did under the conditions in which they lived was that they did not have access to lots of meat. They did not. You were given a sack of flour or a sack of corn. You were given the parts of the animal that the slave owner, plantation owner did not want. And you used those parts to flavor those things that you had from your garden. And many people, free people as well as enslaved, had gardens because that was less provision that the plantation owner had to provide. Yeah, eat mostly plants. Use meat, fish to flavor the vegetables. I really favor Chinese food for that. A lot of the Asian food does that. Largely based in vegetables flavored with chicken, with broccoli beef. Very, very important, interesting thing. Other cuisines, even our soul food. You could, there's a channel that we follow on YouTube where it says I don't know the exact words, but it's 25 meals that people used to eat, struggle food. Just put in something on that line. But struggle food, we didn't eat a whole lot of meat. There's recipes for things like dirty cabbage, where you take small amounts of ground beef, but large amounts of cabbage, carrots, onions, bell peppers. And you'd mix those two things together and have a meal that could feed people. Why? Because full bellies were important. And fiber from vegetables makes a person feel full. Never felt like we were poor in our house because it was always cabbage, meals built upon cabbage, meals built upon greens, meals built upon beans, because meat was expensive. Limit your salt intake, and when you do, use salt, use Celtic salt or sea salt. Why? Because both of these, Himalayan sea salt, Celtic salt, have other minerals with them, whereas regular salt that comes in the blue container is simply sodium chloride. with potassium iodide added to it, so you get your iodine supplement. But largely, it does not provide the other minerals that, in concert with each other, sodium and potassium, as well as magnesium, zinc, other trace minerals, help balance blood pressure. Details on that in another presentation. Eat more foods high in magnesium, avocados, nuts, and seeds. Why magnesium? Magnesium relaxes blood vessels. A relaxed blood vessel is able to accommodate increased blood flow. The larger the diameter of the blood vessel, the more blood is able to pass through it. And when it has the larger blood vessel, the heart does not have to pump against resistance. Makes sense, right? High potassium foods, spinach and sweet potatoes. Potassium and sodium have what we call synergistic relationship. Sodium and potassium, they influence fluids into and out of cells. I'll stop there so you don't get tangled up in the weeds there, but important. So, and get them from natural sources. You are very unlikely to overdose on potassium eating spinach and sweet potatoes. You're very unlikely to overdose on magnesium eating avocados, nuts, and seeds. Why? Because they are paired with other substances that aid in utilization of magnesium, and you will get full before you're able to eat enough to hurt yourself. More strategies. Limit caffeine, alcohol, and sugar, including the diet ones. And specifically, if you're going to consume diet beverages, go for the stevia, the monk fruit, or allulose. Stevia, monk fruit, monk as in Thelonious Monk, as in Shaolin monk fruit, or allulose. Why? Because those are non-toxic. They do not elevate your blood sugar. Stay away from aspartame and acesulfame potassium. Aspartame is Splenda, and it actually is an insecticide. Interesting. Prove me wrong. Look it up. Take your meds as you need them until you can change your diet and lifestyle. I favor what we call the integrated approach. See your drugs as bridges from where you are to where you need to be. If you have high blood pressure, it is totally okay to want to go the natural route, but you have to stay alive with an intact heart and an intact brain while you're getting there. So it takes time to change your diet, it takes time to change your lifestyle. Those changes are gradual in nature. If you look at the FITRA, and you'll hear us in Nunetics, here in the Nunetic space, we are constantly referring to the FITRA. Gradual changes tend to be peaceful changes. Radical fast changes tend to be violent and destructive. Think of a flood versus a gentle rain. Think of a quiet breeze versus a hurricane. Okay? So you don't want rapid changes in your blood pressure unless it's abnormally high. That's different. We're not speaking about intensive and critical care situations. But generally, the gradual lowering of your blood pressure is safe, and your body adapts to it, and you don't have blackouts. Same thing with your blood sugar, or as very, very relevant, people who have been taking the peptides, specifically semaglutide, Ozempic, et cetera, these people experience rapid fat loss, weight loss. And the result of that is they look bad. They look bad. Whereas people who lose weight gradually and safely through diet and lifestyle changes look healthy and look well. So take your time with these kinds of things. Be gentle to your body. Meditate and pray. You don't have to engage in rituals that you don't understand. You do not have to pray in a language that is not your native language. I think in English, I pray in English. I'm aware of prayers in Arabic. I'm aware of prayers in other languages, but my brain thinks in English unless I'm specifically looking to translate something. So that's what I do. Meditate and pray. Both of those things are highly relaxing. And above all, become more active. It's been diagnosed, there's papers that are credible that say that the sedentary lifestyle that's sitting for 8 hours a day is extremely damaging to health. So if because of arthritis or because of the nature of the job you do, it requires you to sit for prolonged periods of time, then set your timer so that every hour you get up and you do 5 chair squats. Get up and sit down 5 or 10 times because that's going to get your blood flowing. While you're sitting, do the flex and point of your toes. Fidget, anything that keeps your blood flowing. Because remember this, your blood was designed to flow, except in cases of injury. So if you sit still, and if you sit still long enough, your blood will clot if it stays in one place for 21 seconds or longer. That's how our brilliant bodies keep us from bleeding to death. You have an injury, press on it, put pressure on it, the same way we put pressure on our butt and on our legs when we sit. Do that. And eventually, over a period of time, certainly not going to, thank God, it's not going to be just 21 seconds, but eventually circulation slows, blood sludges, and it becomes a risk factor for clotting. So maybe it's not just all in your mind, the way you feel, depression, mania, schizophrenia. Maybe it's not all in your mind. Maybe it's all in your brain. Isn't that interesting? Maybe it's all in your brain. Here are some resources. The book that I'm currently studying, and these are books that I've read before. I've got probably 8 of Dr. Daniel Amen's books. Get this book and as many as you can find, The End of Mental Illness. He has websites, brainmd.com. That's where the supplements that he believes are brain healthy for a variety of conditions, you can find them there. And amenclinics.com. That's where you can search for a condition, mental health condition, that you or someone you love is currently dealing with. And he has pull down menus and quizzes that can help you decide which of the supplements would be the best one to remedy that condition. And if you have it, and it requires more than just the supplements, you can actually Google the brain, go to amenclinics.com. And there's as you navigate that site, you'll see numbers where you can call and make an appointment to see one of the professionals. Eventually, I will be listed there as one of their brain health coaches. I am already a brain health coach. I'm now upgrading to the elite certification. And the approach is always going to be supplements first because of the safer side effect profile. In the event that other drugs, stronger drugs, pharmaceutical drugs are needed, you can certainly speak with the psychiatrists and you'll get the benefit of both. And so if you want to contact me, which I urge you to do, my name, in the name that my parents gave me, is Audrey Tinsley. Audrey translated into Arabic is Karima. So the name, my professional name is Audrey Tinsley. I'm a PA, physician assistant, and I'm a certified brain health coach. You want to reach me by email, truehumanhealing@gmail.com. Click on that link. You can email me, or you can call or text at this number, 516-209-6069. I urge you to text first. That way you won't catch me cooking dinner, and I'll be able to give you my full attention. And that's what I want to do. I want to give you my full attention because you deserve that. So as you go forward into the rest of your life, just remember when you're feeling a certain way, maybe it's not just all in your mind. Your mind lives in your body. Your mind, the part of your body that your mind lives in is your brain. So when your brain works right, your life works right. When your brain needs help, your life needs help. So that's the message I want to leave you with. You are not stupid. You're not dumb because you do not have, you're depressed or you're sad about something. No, not any more than I'm not stupid or dumb because I need glasses. I need something to help me see. So I get the physical straight, helps my eyes. Now I can feel good about reading and increase the use of my mind. So with that said, I'm now going to pass the talking stick to my beloved partner, Instructor Bilal.
Well, you can always email her at the email address that she provided for you. And it's a wonderful, wonderful, as Bayina was just texting me, it's a wonderful thing to have a dedicated medical professional on your team. Someone who you can ask questions to, and she'll make the proper referrals for you to whomever you need to reach out to for any kind of situation that involves your health, especially if you see it reaching critical proportions. You don't wait for it to become critical before you ask about it. That's the whole key. Don't wait until you're on the operating table and now you're trying to text a message to Karima.
Indeed,
You
indeed.
understand? Yeah, don't wait that long. That's kind of long. All right. But we thank her for her service to humanity, not just to our family, not just to our community, what they call our community, the Black community, Muslim community, whatever. Her service is to all individuals who are attempting to be their best true human selves. That's what we're looking for. And that language is a bit different than the common person's language who is still talking on the level of race and, gender and putting all kinds of separations between us that are absolutely unnecessary to make. There are separations to consider when we talk about the differences in ethnic groups and the differences in the foods we like and the clothes we prefer to wear and all of those things. But when you boil it all the way down to the essence, as we've been using as a word today, what really makes the difference between me and another individual human? How long we've been out in the sunlight? The only true difference between male and female, in my mind, is the bathroom and the bedroom. You'll find some stark differences in those two areas. But if you're talking about language, or you're talking about what I like to eat, Spanish food or Haitian food, Chinese food, or whatever, I can change that at will and not compromise my human self. I can change my clothes, my outfits. I might be going on a trip to Ghana or Mecca or wherever, and I put on their official, governmental or cultural garb, and that doesn't change my human self. So any changes that you can make that does not change your human self, they are in essence additional layers of you. And in many, many cases, they are artificial constructs that have been created in many parts of the world by social manipulators who needed to build an artificial defense system against your coming into your true human power. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. What makes us truly human, and the fact that the human being is magnetic. I want you to remember that term. The human being is magnetic. So Karima sends her thank yous to all of you, and you know how to contact her. Give me just one moment to get my notes set and be ready for the linguistic ride of your lifetime. Stand by. So once again, welcome. We're here today on this Sunday, August the 9th, 2026. I am your international instructor, Benjamin Bilal. And we thank all of you for your participation in today's class. It's been excellent. Every single presentation has been enjoyed by me, and I'm sure by all of you. And we're thankful that you've taken the time to be with us today. We're going to be talking about a subject that is a little bit unusual as a title, but it's a subject that's also addressed by many people in the scientific community. You know, we live in a universe of electromagnetism, as they call it. And I was saying to my wife earlier that I think, based on the evidence, that we should be calling this a magnetic electric universe. I think the magnetism aspect of the universe should be first, because I believe that the universe itself is more reflective of a magnetic principle, which is a feminine principle. A magnetism is feminine energy. Electricity, or that which is electric, goes out like the masculine principle does, and it is masculine as a principle. So put them both together, then you have the construction that I gave you in saying that this is a magnetic electric universe. Now, I'm going to say a few things before getting to my notes. And I'm basing this on just the notes I was taking as the different presenters were presenting you their information. But let me start by saying that just as sure as the human being is a magnet, the human being also exists on the level of abstract reality, or what we call abstract thinking. And I want you to differentiate abstract thinking from literal thinking. When we think literally, we're thinking about things as we sense them with our five basic senses. And as we describe them based on the information, the input that's coming into our five basic senses. And all living creatures do that. All of the animal life, for sure, they do that. But there's one particular creature created by Allah who does not merely think on the literal level, on the what you see is what you get level. There's a creature who thinks on both the literal as well as the abstract level. This is a creature that's born into the world, onto this planet, who is born thinking literally. They're born believing that what they see is what they get. They're born registering knowledge or information or words that are being spoken to them and believing that those words are referring to literal things in the environment.
Sir,
Yes.
Quran 3:7 Mukamat and Mutashar Bihar.
Okay. We'll go there in a little while. I don't want to diverge right now, but thank you for that.
Okay, no, okay.
Yeah, thanks for the note. To give it again so people will know exactly where to refer to.
Quran 3:7.
Great. Okay, so I may want you to bring that up again a little later in my lecture so we can comment on that.
All right, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So the human being is both a literal as well as an abstract thinker. And the baby born, as I said, begins to grow in its first year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe going up into the age of 7 and 8 years old. They're thinking on a literal level, on the most part. When you say something, that's what it is to them. But as the mind begins to grow and expand, or what we call evolve, as the mind begins to evolve, you come into some ideas that the deer and the antelope and the bears and the dogs and the roaches, they can't register this level. It's called abstract. It's called metaphor. These animals, they don't know anything about metaphorical language, which is what Instructor Adib is referring to from the Quran. They don't know anything about metaphorical language. They think that what I am is what I am when they see me, or what that plant is when they see that plant. That's what it is. You can't convince them that there's some hidden or some secret or some allegorical or some invisible meaning to what they're looking at and experiencing. They won't go for that because Allah did not give them that capacity. He gave it, as far as we're concerned, only to the human person, the person who considers themselves to have a human brain operating in their skull. So when we mention something like heartbreak to another person, unless they are 2 years old, 3 years old, and you say heartbreak, and they think about the physical heart breaking, like they show in many of these children's cartoons, they're not going to think about a physical heart in the chest that's breaking. So why do we think about a physical heart when we read some of these so-called hadiths that say that the prophet, as a baby or as a child, had his heart taken out of his chest and washed by the angel Jibreel? Why do we think that's physical or literal language? It's because we have been out of touch, or maybe never in touch, with abstract language. And if we have not been involved with abstract language, then we have no clue who the source creator is talking to when he's addressing the higher form of human thinking, the higher levels of human construction of ideas, thoughts, and emotions. When those things are explained in the Quran in this abstract language, we can't identify it because we're too busy thinking on the literal level. We're going to give you some reasons for that in just a moment. But just to keep in mind, as was said, the human being is a magnet. The human being is based on a feminine principle that pulls things towards it. It pushes some things away, but it pulls things on the most part towards it, things that it needs for its very basic survival. That's why you pull food towards you on your fork or your spoon. That's why you pull your plate towards you and put it in front of you when you're about to eat. If you think about what you're doing during the day, you have to bring things in towards you in order to benefit from those things on other levels. So heartbreak is it's an abstract concept. When we say, we're talking to someone and we mean what we say and we want them to know that we mean what we just said, we say, now you can take that to the bank. Do you pull out your bank card when you hear people saying that to you? You're quick to go for your put that in the bank, take that to the bank. What banking number are you using? Nobody thinks like that, not as an adult, maybe as a child, but never, ever as an adult will you take it that way. When you hear people saying that they use drugs, they smoke reefer, they snort cocaine or whatever because they wanted to get high. Have you ever seen a person get high and leave the ground and start floating because they're getting high? No, we know that that's not what they're talking about when they discuss being high or getting high or someone else being high. Yeah, he was high when he came, to school that day. Your son was high. Do you think that means he was floating off of his school chair? No, based on common sense that that's not what it is, but you won't readily identify it as abstract language because you haven't been taught principles of abstract language. So you know what it means, but you don't know where it came from. You got other people who are using narcotics and other things, and maybe even cigarettes they smoke to lessen the depression and the drama and the confusion and the nervousness and all of these other things. They smoke cigarettes because they're feeling kind of low. Does that mean that they're crawling around on the ground because they're feeling low? No. You might see some indication when they drop their head as they talk that they are depressed or that they're not feeling what we call up to it. Yeah, that might be an indication. That's an indication operating in the psyche to point you towards the real thing that is going on internally, operating on the internal person that is the true person, the human person. So we wanted to leave these examples with you because they are important for understanding the role of the true human as being a magnet. We spoke about Jesus a few weeks ago, a few strong days ago, actually. We like to say, we don't like to use the term weak, so we say strong, the strong end. The weekend is now the strong end. And we told you that Jesus actually represents how the human being can achieve ease, EASE. The entire Quran essentially is about how the person who chooses to be true to his and her nature can achieve a level of excellence, as William pointed out, and a level of ease, as I am pointing out, that is unparalleled. Sometimes you'll see your friends say, yeah, man, when they're leaving, they say, be easy, man. Yeah, that's your nature, be easy. Your nature is peace. You can hear the word ease and peace. Your nature is Muslim, salam, one who is salam, one who is peaceful. So the ease is built into your natural makeup, is the point. But many of us are not aware, unless we're listening very critically and very carefully, that the name Isa, which is how they translate Jesus into Arabia or Arabic, we say Isa. If you listen very carefully, you hear the word ease in Isa, even though they're two different languages. Because Jesus effectively himself represents the achievement of a level of ease, not for the person who may have lived 2,000 years ago or whatever in Jerusalem and, in those places. No, not for the person. Nothing that the scripture is telling us is simply for the individual person being spoken about. Everything in scripture is designed to be of benefit to the human being. The human being is the subject matter. And to give that subject matter a name is simply giving the human being an archetype. It's giving the human being a particular way of describing the behavior of all human beings under these circumstances. Now, that's a little bit hard to digest right now. We're not going to go into the nuts and the bolts of it, or as Karima said, into the weeds of it. We're not going to do that today. I've done that. You can just click back and listen to some of the older videos. The point is that Isa is also in you. That Musa, Moses, is also in you. That Zechariah is also in you. You are so multifaceted as a human. But it's because, again, we haven't been taught who we are. We don't know that when we're reading these things in scripture, whether it's the Bible, the Quran, or the Upanishads, or the Vedic scriptures, or whatever scriptures you might be reading, we're so busy thinking on the literal level that we've been trained on, not taught on, we've been trained like animals to respond to literal language. We're so busy doing that we miss the true message, the true essence that is designed to assist us in our growth and evolution upwards. And again, I don't mean upwards as a literal fact. I mean upwards as a fact of your growth, development, and evolution. The Quran gives Isa as the son of Maryam, or Mary. The son of Mary. Isa bin Maryam. Now, unless you understand the abstract message that is being taught to you, you won't be able to get the higher idea that the source creator, whom we call Allah, of course, is attempting to teach you through or by. Allah is always about the business of elevating the human essence. And he not only elevates us in our particular day and time, within the months or the years that we have to live on this earth, whatever it is, 40 years, 50 years, 70 years, whatever it is. We have our own little personal evolution based on that time stamp. But Allah is not interested, if you will, in elevating us as individual time stamps on planet Earth. He's interested in elevating us as a humanity of abstract thinkers and emotional thinkers and instinctive motivations. Hassan, your phone is open, sir. Hassan, your phone is open. Thank you, sir. So this is what Allah is most interested in. How to elevate his human creature. The final creature on the assembly line, if you will, of created things that matter. You know, the human being may have been here for zillions of years. We don't know. But we do know that as far as the evolution of the human intellect and the human being's interest in moral thinking and ethical thinking and sharing of resources, and that's relatively recent on this planet. Most people started out very stingy. Most people started out very closed-fisted. You can tell in every infant who's born, that infant is born essentially with his fists closed and wrapped around anything you put in his hand. He'll take your finger and he won't want to give it back. These are signs, signals, and symbols that Allah has clocked into the fitrah, the natural world of created things that are providing patterns for the human brain to be able to assess and digest. So he wrap his hand up in there. You know, by the time he's going to school or she's going to school, they want to wrap their hands around your hands so you can help them walk. So the human being, again, is starting out essentially what we would call, if he were older, we call it being greedy. Give me. You come out with some candy or some ice cream or something that child likes to eat. gimme, 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 mine, mine. They'll argue with their siblings about what's theirs, theirs, theirs. Because the human being is basically born uncultivated. And the job of the adults in the room is to provide cultivation, just like a field. So Allah says, Iqra, and a lot of people don't know that Iqra does not mean as a first meaning, read. That's not what it means. As a first meaning, Iqra is pointing to the Qara'a principle. And the Qara'a principle is one that collects. It likes to collect, bring things to itself, as we mentioned a little earlier. To gather things. When you gather, you go out into a broad field of something, a broad spectrum of information, and you begin to pick and choose which is going to best suit your life and your motivations and your development and the development after that of your family members and then the people close to you in the family. And then it begins to outstretch to include what's of benefit to people in your circle, even if they're not blood related to you. You're still thinking about your neighbor down the block and what's best for them, or your tribe on the other side of the river and what is best for that extended family that you're looking at. So again, these are the hints and clues that provide insight into your abstract self as a human person. The abstract you is the most important part of your development. So who is Maryam in this instance? I've only heard Imam W.D. Muhammad say this on one occasion. He may have repeated it somewhere else that I didn't get a chance to hear. But this one time was enough for my brain to get to rocking and rolling with this information. He said that Maryam represents memory. How profound is that short statement? Because phonetically, they're related. Memory, Maryam, or Maryam. Practically all of the same sounds in memory are in Maryam with the change of a vowel, maybe. It's a wonderful thing when you understand it. So when we get that first insight, not into a woman who lived 2,000 years ago and gave birth to a physical baby in a physical cradle or a physical barn, however you think it happened. No, not that one, not that Maryam. This is talking about the Maryam that's in each and every human being in the form of native memory. And the beautiful thing about this is that that memory exists in the human being, not only on one level. You have various levels of memory. You have your personal memory of what you've experienced in your journey on this earth and whatever amount of years, again, that you spent toiling on this earth. You have that memory, but do you also know that you have genetic memory? And this is the memory that Imam Muhammad was outlining when he said that Maryam is memory. He was speaking about what we now call cosmic memory, or he called it back then genetic memory. What is genetic memory, instructor? Genetic memory is the memory that put that nose on your face that looks like the nose on the faces of people 1,000 years ago and maybe 1,000,000 years ago. They don't have exactly the color or the necessary structure exactly that, their noses might have been wide or very, very thin. Their noses might have been white as snow or black as the hills of Georgia or wherever the Black Hills are. I don't know. But the functionality is what we're talking about. The functionality of the nose was the same 1,000,000 or however many years we go back to the first human form walking this earth. It was the same functionality. So what does that tell you? That tells you that functionality is a bit above form. The functionality. as much what you might call damage that Mr. Michael Jackson, may he rest in peace, had done to his nose, it was still breathing when he left here. The functionality was, the form had been destroyed or altered, but the functionality was still present. Or else he would have just lost his life immediately if he couldn't breathe after those operations. So I'm saying this to put the emphasis where the emphasis should be placed. Because the fitra is a combination of form plus function. It's a combination of how a thing looks to the sight, and how it sounds in the ears, and how it smells in the nostrils, and how it feels when you touch it, and how it tastes when you put your tongue to it. Yeah, it's that. That's your form. But what do those senses do as things that function for you? That's where your true life is. The mind has a form, but the mind, more importantly, possesses functionality. And the functionality of the human mind, as I said earlier, is not just literal. The functionality in the mind registers literal concepts as well as abstract concepts. In the world of education that we live in today, the academicians or the teachers, the professors, whatever you want to call them, they are not in the business of graduating you emotionally. The fitra's job, the world of nature, is designed to nurture you also. And it nurtures you to the point where what you are experiencing on the physical level of sensation, it has also been designed by the source creator to educate you in terms of your nurturing. So it doesn't just connect you with nature. It also connects you with the idea of nurture, growing internally on those individual and indivisible levels until you become more and more refined as a life form. That's what needs to be understood also. The human being is not just a form. The human being is also a functionality that is growing internally, the skills, the development, the talent, all of these things, these internal invisible properties, as they're called in the Quran, you're growing bil ghaib, with el ghaib, which with the unseen qualities also. So you're not just growing like the pig on the farm or the horse in the, in the barn. You're growing internally. Even when you stop growing physically, you can still grow internally. Doesn't matter what your age. So that's an important set of points to remember. We in our day and time are taught, and I guess this is true also for groups of people who existed several hundred years ago, or especially once the public school system was put in place, turn of this last century, actually, end of the 1800s and those kinds of eras. And there was a great plot afoot, I believe, to begin educating the masses in the public. As most of you should know, there was a time when there was no education as we know it. It was actually illegal for you to educate somebody with true education. Not even in religion were the priests and those preachers of that day were supposed to share education with you. They were supposed to read you the Bible. in the Catholic Church in particular. They had to read, and then they read the Bible in a language that you didn't even speak, Latin, from the Latin Vulgate Bible. So you're sitting there to hear the interpretation. Now, who's responsible for interpreting that information? The same priest that read it to you in Latin. So you had to then believe what he told you those meanings were and meant, and how those meanings were to be utilized in your life for what God wanted you to do. He could add anything to that and say, God wanted you to do this. And that's exactly what happened. Interpretation, interpolation, and all of those other Asian words is what corrupted the world of Catholicism, Christianity, generally speaking. And Muslims, don't laugh and don't be disparaging in your remarks against Christians, because the Muslim leaders did exactly the same thing with the Quran. Our subject today, the human being is a magnet. And believe it or not, language is the primary culprit in magnetizing things in your direction, to the point where the things that you're magnetizing on a daily basis is what creates your life. So when we talk about bad things, for instance, happening in our lives, don't blame it on the boogie. The only boogeyman you have to blame is the invisible influences that you keep calling towards yourself through the use of frequencies that are being matched by frequencies outside of you. If they find a home in you that sounds like what they like as music, sounds like what they like as speech and talk and rumors and backbiting, if they find that matching frequency, that's all they have to do is make sure that it matches. Just like in a whole room full of pianos, you could have one piano in front of you and hit a high C note, and all the other high C notes in the room, although you haven't touched them, they're going to vibrate that same tone, because frequencies like to match or harmonize. It's a wonderful finding, isn't it? So in academics, we were taught to think linearly. Linear is a reference to a line, just a straight line. That's linear, see, linear. We live in a world of schemers who were able to use subterfuge. They were able to exchange one concept for another concept in a way that you would consider to be magician-like, magical. How did they replace this whole concept with this other concept? That's easy to explain. How did they replace you, let's say, for instance, as a so-called African, being inferior to this whole other people that are called European? That was magic. And all they had to do was tell you that that's what it was, like they told you in the Catholic Church or in the Muslim masjid or wherever, that this is what God said. That's all they had to do. That's all they did to establish Christianity and racism. I'm not painting a bad mark or, on Christian. I'm using that just as the temporary example. Christianity has brought a lot of good into this world. And Christianity has also brought a lot of civilized thinking into this world. So I'm not blaming Christianity as though I'm blaming the religion per se. The religion came to us in its corrupted form, in its misaligned presentation, in its misrepresented presentation. And by the way, that's partially what the crucifixion of Christ means in the Bible. Crucifying the original intent of that language. Jesus said, I am the Word. Jesus was a language construct. When you cause the language to veer off track and you begin following that corrupted language, you in essence and in effect are crucifying whatever that language represents. And if the language represents Christ, then you have effectively participated in the crucifixion of Christ. And Christ then needs to be resurrected. See? And that was the original purpose for the Quran. It came to set the binds loose, the straps that have been holding you down, the rocks that have been burdening your back and your chest. It came to lift that extra weight, that unnecessary weight off of your body and free you to be a true human being along with other human beings in the world. So that's the crucifixion. It's the crucifixion of the language. So we have to understand the deeper connections in the language before we can understand the deeper connections in scripture, whether it's the Bible or the Quran, as mentioned earlier. And my role is to provide whatever insight I can muster up in order to make that journey a little lighter for you. So we are taught to think linearly, but life as we know it is not a linear life. The only reason we think it is because that's what we've been taught. Now you might say, well, that sounds a little spooky there. You got to explain that, Instructor Bilal. I certainly will. You're living in a linear context, but that linear context is actually an illusion. I'm sorry to laugh. I was laughing at myself this time last year when I didn't know this. I said the same thing most of you are saying. I said, well, let me wait for him to explain that one. I see myself getting older, so life must be linear. When I was 23, I didn't look like this. I didn't feel like this. I didn't do the things I could do when I was 23. So life must be linear. It's linear, but it's not only linear. And it is not essentially linear. Life is essentially non-linear. I'm throwing this out as a teaser, and I'm going to further open this subject up next Strong 7. More than likely on next Sunday, because this takes a lot of picking apart of stuff to show you where things and ideas and concepts came from before you're going to understand it in its totality. And I don't want anything I say to be understood or accepted because I said it. I want it to be accepted because you are proving that, or being proved that it is being proved that the fitrah established it that way. So with the great onset of this new level of insight into the sciences that this world has recently come into, many things that could not be explained prior to that are now opened up for further evaluation and research. So you are not essentially a linear creature. You are essentially a non-linear creature. And it's the linear life that gives you the illusion of time, you living in a time sequence. 400 years ago, 1,000 years ago, this one was born 2000 BC or 2000 AD or whatever. And it's the linear concept that gives us this illusion, as the Quran calls it. Allah says that all of what we're looking at out here is an illusion. The Quran calls it al-ghurur, L-G-H-U-R-O-O-R, ghurur. That sounds spooky. So The opposite of linear time is often referred to as nonlinear time, which suggests that time does not progress in a straight line from past to future. So time can be experienced as cyclical or simultaneous, where events might not follow the sequential order that we're used to hearing about and believing in. Now, what does that mean for our purposes here today? It means that time for us has been divided into three sections or categories. Past, the present, and future. However, in the realm of true science, there's really no such thing as time as a sequencing of events that happen. And there are scientists who are now believing and are aware, I should say, that time is occurring simultaneous to itself. In other words, that there are different things going on in our space that we're calling past, present, and future, but they're all happening simultaneously. They're all happening at the same time. And what we are experiencing is that information that we are gravitating towards or being magnetized towards. And there are people who have very sophisticated tools of analysis that are showing how time is actually simultaneous to itself. That there are different realms. This is why a lot of scientists are starting to say, yes, there are multi-universes and there are things happening. And there may even be another you somewhere else in the galaxy, in the universe, who's experiencing your same life, but they're on a different time sequence. They are the earlier you. You know why I believe that could be true? Because that's how you dream. Sometimes you dream and your children are little again, even though you're the age you are now. See? They're younger than they are now. And that dream seems just as real as if it were going on in real life, what we call real life, right now before you, until you're awakened. Those are the different realities, if you will, that the human being lives in. I don't know if animals dream in these kinds of, you know, simultaneous realms, but humans surely do. And there's a lot to be discovered. So we can't say but too much about it right now. We have to just figure it out and discover it slowly but surely. And also give you the Quranic. The Quran speaks on these things. We don't realize it because we're so trained to think in the linear and literal levels that we've been on. But the Quran is telling you this all of the time when it tells you there was a man who died and, 100 years later, he's still here. So how old is your donkey? Yeah, he looked the same as he did. So no, but 100, do you realize that 100 years has gone by? What? So many of these things are being spoken of in the Quran because the Quran is addressing some of the most sophisticated concepts of abstract life and development that we haven't come into yet. So we're not aware. We don't know what to focus on because we don't have any reference for it yet. But those references are coming. So let me get started with my notes. There is a law operating in your life right now that decides three things that you have been credited to chance or crediting to chance. When they happen, you say, oh, that's just a happenstance. That's just an accident. That's, what a coincidence is what we say most of the time. Those three things are who comes close to your life. The second thing is what sticks to you. There are many things that come close to your life and they come and they go. But other people come into your life and they stay there. They stick to you for a while at least. And number three is what slides off of it without leaving a mark. There are some things that come to you, they stick to you, and then they leave you, and you don't even hardly think about those people. Sometimes they die, and you don't really give thought to them anymore. Sometimes they were your old boyfriend, your old girlfriend who did you wrong. But they don't leave a mark. Haven't affected you one iota. So by magnet, we mean that you are a center of charge that attracts what is tuned to it, and it repels what is not tuned to it. When you tune your radio dial, for instance, those are abstract frequencies operating in the cosmos. And when you decide to align with a particular frequency on that radio dial that's operating out here, you can't see it. They call them the airwaves, but you're looking in the air right now. You don't see music from WBLS or from the jazz station 102 point whatever. You don't see those, but they're all around you right now. Waves. That's what we mean by abstract also. And this is what magnets do. You are the center of charge that attracts what is tuned to you on your level of frequency, and it repels what is not tuned to you. If this law has never worked for you as a law in your life, there is only one reason. Nobody ever bothered to show you the mechanism. Going to go a little bit deep now. Put your thinking caps on. I'll keep them on. The Quranic word Mecca is where the Western world gets the word mechanic and mechanism. They learned all of this during the period of time when the Moors invaded Spain. The Muslim Moors invaded Spain, and they learned so much from those Muslims, from the Quran, that they began to piece apart, break down, take to other parts of Europe and spread it or disseminate it on the most part without revealing their sources. They couldn't just outright say, this is from the Quran. This is Quranic wisdom right here that I'm sharing with you. When you look at the dictionary and look for where these words came into vogue, meaning most of the words in the scientific community I'm talking about now, just look at the year that they appeared. They're going to be between the 1200s and the 1600s or 1700s. Those were the periods where the Renaissance was taking place. That happened only after Muslims had come in contact with the Christians and the Jews and other people who they were actually studying with. Here's what they don't tell you in your public schools, that Muslims, Jews, Sephardic Jews, they're called, and Christians, they were all studying together, sharing knowledge and wisdom. Isn't that something? That they don't even tell you that. Maybe we could solve a lot of the religious prejudice in the world right now if they would just start teaching from their televisions and their cameras and studios and recordings that there was a time when Muslims, Christians, and Jews were getting along like clockwork. Well, you never hear that because they want you to think that we are natural enemies to each other because we're Muslims, because we're Christians. We're never supposed to like those Jews or those Muslims because we are natural enemies of these people. What kind of God is this they believe in that creates natural enemies amongst humans? It creates humans as natural enemies just to see them fight and kill each other. What kind of religion is that? Why would you want that religion? Why would you promote that idea? Now, the entire universe revolves around mechanism, a mechanism phrased in the Quran as al-alamin, where Allah says He is Rabbil Alameen, the evolver of what we now call all systems of knowledge or systems of information, or what they used to call in their translations, Lord of all the worlds. Yeah, those worlds contain systems of ilm or knowledge. And again, our entire cosmos revolves around a mechanism that is phrased in the Quran as al-alamin. So we can say, along with all the worlds, we can also say of all the mechanisms that shape this world and its destiny. There are logical mechanisms that are responsible for the birth, growth, and maintenance of this universe we call the cosmos. In science, everything that revolves evolves. We say Lord, and we give one of the attributes of the Rab, or the what they call the Lord, as the evolver and sustainer of the world. That's how we usually phrase it, right? The scholars. But if it's revolving, it's evolving. If there's an evolution, there must have been a revolution. And that's what you're seeing in the world right now, socially speaking. It looks bad, but the outcome of it is going to be positive if people stick to the positive connotations and denotations, more importantly, of what is going on in the world right now. It happened in the formation of this country. They had to have a revolution before they could have any kind of evolution. And the majority of the evolution for the American experience has only occurred within the last 100 years, believe it or not. Before that, they were in moonwalk mode. Just look like they're going forward, but really they were taking giant steps backwards. I pray that one day we will become more sophisticated at recognizing the source creators movement as it is affecting the human movement. We're used to looking at the human movement and attributing most of what's happening to Shaitan, to Satan. So, oh my goodness. Look at these people and how they're acting over there in this continent and that country and so forth. And we have to go in there with weapons and bombs and bomb the badness out of them. That's our analysis. But it's not true. You have to follow a script that contains the necessary hikmah, as Bayina pointed out, the necessary hikmah, the necessary wisdom for handling that particular level of issue. And it's interesting that she gave the example in a Quranic word called the ashar. Ashar. She did a wonderful job. Now, most people would translate that word shar as hard. I think Karima gave you that also in her presentation on that word. So in the Quran, in a surah called Al-Falaq, the dawn or the daybreak, Allah says, Min shari ma khalaq, from the harm, sometimes they translate it as evil, shar, evil, but from the harm of created things. Al-Khalaq, min shari ma khalaq, of the harm or the evil of that which was created. Now, I've given you a translation for the word khalaqa, which says that it means that he programmed a thing. So it's from the harm, from the shar of that which he programmed. See, a lot of people have a problem with that understanding from the Quran because they think it's saying that the Creator created this harm. That he's like a little mad scientist up in the sky somewhere, just creating bad moments for humans. Maybe he's lonely or something in this heavens or whatever. This is the idea that they give us with these crazy stories that we're fed. Min shari ma khalaq, from the harm of what he has created. Because the khalaqa, that's a past tense verb, and it means that he did it. Somebody did this to me. Not that just that it happened. Somebody made this happen. And who's the somebody? Whoever's responsible for the khalaq, for the creation, the created thing. But if you understand that word to mean, more importantly, that it was programmed, just like the computer that Bayina was discussing. That's why I had a big Kool-Aid smile on my face. Hate to use that analogy. Kool-Aid is giving so many people diabetes. But you understand what I'm saying? So what is that saying in essence? She was talking about the computer glitch when she mentioned Shah. And that's exactly what it is in computer language. And I wouldn't just ask Bayina to update our understanding based on the language we're used to. I would ask the audience to update their understanding based on the language, the new language that she just used today. But that's a story for another day. So, in science, everything that revolves evolves. And that's how you know a true revolution from somebody who's faking and frauding revolution. The Mao Mao, oh, whatever. I'm just pulling a name out of a hat, right? Whoever, the Cuban Revolution, everybody's crying that they got a revolution going on in their country. Gil Scott Heron said the revolution will not be televised, right? No, but and why did you die from drug usage and alcoholism? So words are one thing, but the words operating in the context of the true fitrah created by Allah, that's another kind of true revolution. Because if it was a true revolution, there would have been a true simultaneous evolution. Look at some of your leaders on the television today, claiming to be leaders of the Black community and leaders of the Latino community and leaders of and leaders of and leaders of. And they're calling themselves, the socialists, communists, Marxists, or whoever. And they're claiming that they're here to create a revolution in America, but the revolution should have a simultaneous evolution taking place right besides it. So unless you see things evolving, meaning that the quantity and the quality is increasing, leave it alone. They're lying. When we evolve, we take on not only quantities, which are measurable, but qualities, which are immeasurable. I hope that registers on you. Quantities are measurable, but qualities, remember what I said about form and function? The quantity is the form, what it looks like. But the quantity is the function. If it looks good, but it's not functioning right, waste of time, waste of money. The computer looks like it might be working correctly. You're getting it from the thrift store. You can't plug it in to see if it works before you purchase it. Those are signs. No, I'm sorry, we can't turn it on for you here. Yeah, but if something goes wrong with it, just keep the receipt and bring it back. Why? You can just deplug. You got a wall socket right there. You can just show me that it at least turns on. Life is about quantity and quality. These two things are actually captured for us in the two Arabic letters, Nun and Mim. Nun, which means seed, essentially, which is measured in quantities. You will never, ever see a farmer go to his wide, vast, open field and plant one seed. Now he takes a scoop. Sometimes he gets a whole thing that digs up, quantities of seeds and spreads them all around because he wants a nice, healthy, full production. And then quality is related to the word meme, which, as you know, means any life-sustaining liquid, but preferably water. Meme, water. And water is what provides the quality for human life. As someone said earlier, I think it was Nawa, mentioned that water is synonymous with morality, moral thinking. And moral thinking is what provides the quality for human life. You can have a person looking like a human being with no moral compass, no moral limitations on what he will and will not do to somebody if they cross his path and he doesn't like the way they look or what they're wearing or the kind of clothing they're wearing or not wearing or whatever. And he's going to do something horrendous against them just because they are different than him. Yeah, that's an interruption in the person's moral compass, where his morals point him to as a good direction for his life. It is these qualities that more accurately describe what a human being actually is. What does it mean to evolve? It means to unfold, to open up or open out, to expand. From the Latin evolvere or evolvere, to unroll, to roll out, to roll forth, to unfold, especially of books, figuratively, to make clear, to disclose, to produce, to develop. So if you're living in a world that is ruled by Rabbil Alameen, the evolver of all systems of knowledge, then that knowledge should be doing all of these things here. It should be making things clear. It should be disclosing things that were once closed off to you. It should be producing that which before was providing no production. And it should be developing things that were left undeveloped. This section here is not a necessary one for today, and because of the time, I'm not going to go through it. But if someone, Nawa or William, will remind me to include this in the replay, I will certainly do so. It's important to the topic, but it's not a necessary insertion at this point. The universe is balanced, and therefore the human must also seek balance in order to fulfill his purpose, the human purpose. In the surah called Al-Hijr, the Rocky Tract, Surah 15, Ayah 29, Allah says, فَإِذَا سَوَيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. When I, meaning Allah, have fashioned him, meaning Adam, in due proportion, meaning in a balanced way, and breathed into him of my, meaning Allah, of my spirit, fall ye down in obeisance unto him, meaning obey his commands. Whose commands? The Khalifa that they say represents Adam, the human mind. Stop thinking about a guy created a few thousand years ago. Think about somebody who is created every time a baby is born, a Khalifa is born. You see that breath that the child takes as soon as he comes to this reality, on this side of the reality? As soon as he's born, something gets hold of his lungs. And he sometimes the doctor will spank his bottom to activate that lung potential. And he starts breathing and crying. And those are not always tears of anguish. Sometimes they are tears of joy, I think. Wow, this is what I was waiting for. And just a few minor adjustments on the outside of that womb puts that baby in perfect rest. What is rest? I told you, reset. I've said that over and over again in different classes. The word rest is the word reset. So before Allah breathed into us of his spirit, his ruah, something happens prior to that. Allah says, when I have fashioned him in due proportion, فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ, that means to fashion something in a balanced way. That means the installation of what is called the uswa principle of balance and sobriety, when you can walk on two legs forward and not fall over. If you do that, then your system is inebriated. It's drunk. It's high. But if you can walk on two legs like the child struggles to do at 1 year old and 2 years old, and to the point where he's holding on to the wall and his mama tries to grab him to help him walk, and he gets angry at her. I'm supposed to be doing this on my own. The human being has that clocked into his fitrah to be self-independent to that on that level. I see all of you doing it. Why are you laughing and smiling and riding bikes and I'm over here falling and hitting my boom boom in my head on the wall. I want to do this now. Built into his fitrah. Isn't that beautiful? But that's the first step. The installation of the uswa principle. This is a life lesson for all of us, that if you want to make progress forward and claim that you are embodying something that Allah installed in you personally, you can't do it until you first accept to be balanced. And that's especially true for the human mind. You have to be balanced. Don't be so far on the left and far on the right that you can't see straight. Because you have never been shown your life's means of operation, you have never been able to accurately operate that which you did not know. However, ignoring this mechanism did not switch it off. It keeps on deciding just without your conscious participation. I'm giving you a very valuable lesson in how the fitrah operates. The fitrah is going to be here whether you're here or not. And if you are here, it's going to operate on your behalf, whether you like it or not. If you like it, you take conscious control of it, and that's when you evolve. That's when you become nurtured. But if you don't choose to do that, then the fitrah will take you and put you on the default line. Let's just let him grow by default. Let him grow according to whatever catches him in the wind. Just like your garden, your front yard, it's going to grow. And if you don't tend to it, it's going to grow the way it wants to grow, the way the fitrah is designed to prompt it to grow, and how high it should grow and how wide it should grow, because you are not consciously participating in the growth of your own garden. The word conscious means with choice. Everything that comes into our lives is done because we are choosing it to come into our lives. Some of the choices are made consciously, but about 80% is done unconsciously. Think about your life. Think about the decisions you're making or think you're making. 80% is done unconsciously. This is a law that is supervising over the human mind. This law operates generally in nature also. To get the best out of nature, you have to consciously participate in its upkeep. Think about your front lawn, as I just said. It will only remain beautiful with your conscious participation as far as its preservation is concerned. If you stop being responsible, your house could soon be overgrown with bushes and weeds and dead things and snakes and worms and all kinds of fictional-based creatures will creep up on you if you're not consciously aware of what that growth entails. Let us begin understanding this mechanism by correcting a concept in anatomy. Your physical body is not the limit of you. It is the core of an energy field. This physical body is the core, it's the centerpiece, the middle of an energy field. Unfortunately, we are not taught this in our public or private schools. This energy field wraps around you completely and is shaped like an egg. The Hermetics called this field the personal atmosphere. If you don't know what the Hermetics is or are, it was discovered by one that they called Hermes, Hermes. Look him up and study his contribution to knowledge and wisdom. The Hermetic principles. So according to the Hermetics, or to Hermes in this case, this field is called your personal atmosphere. This field right here, these egg-shaped circular beams of light. And by the way, you have very sophisticated machines that can read your auras in this very way. I remember when my wife and I were in Arizona, they're very big on metaphysical phenomena. And we sat somewhere where they had a machine that was able to register these beams of light that were coming from our bodies. Some people can see these circular projections without a machine. There are people whose senses are that heightened that they can see this without even having to use a machine. So it's called the aura. There's a lot to be said about this. I think I'll follow up in the next 7 days on showing you the connections between the word aura and the word hira, which we use in trying to explain the onset of revelation upon Muhammad the Prophet in a cave that was called Hira. When the A is at the beginning of a word, it's a pronunciation that is akin to the letter H also, called a guttural. So Hira is also aura. So this is the cave. I know your mind just said, wow. Yeah. And you had to climb to get there. Your magnetic charge operates from this field. When we speak of magnetism, it was never the flesh and blood part of our cells that attracts or repels. That's what magnets do. They attract or they repel. That work is a byproduct of the field around it, the attracting and the repelling. This field has a defined function outside of any symbolic value. The traditions teach that vitality, life essence, it circulates through it, and that this field takes part in the closing of a wound. It provides a defense against an infection, and it compensates for what the body itself lacks. So listen to what's being said here. This field that we just described has an egg-shaped emanation of energies. It has a defined function. And the traditions teach that your very light essence circulates through the field, and that this field takes part in the closing of a wound. So it's not any extraneous something happening outside of you that's responsible for if you get a cut, that cut knows how to heal without you doing anything. But what is doing the healing effectively? It's these energies surrounding that, what's called an aperture or cut or wound. These fields here are responsible for the real healing. It's beautiful when you understand it. So even when you get sick and you go to the doctor and you think the doctor cured you because he gave you some Metamucil or something or whatever, it's not the doctor that's curing you. It's that field. It's that energy field, the aura. And whatever your body is lacking as a potential to get rid of that harm, the aura then kicks in to compensate. It's beautiful. When this layer is whole, as I just showed you, the body is able to replenish what it spends. But when it becomes compromised, you wake up tired without a cause that your mirror can show you. You say, I don't know why I feel this bad. From day to day. You went to sleep last night, you were all right. You get up in the morning and you got bags under your eyes. Blood clot eyes. Arms hanging half off. You don't know what happened. Ain't nobody come and hit you with nothing, but you just feel bad. Well, those are things that are compromising your aura. And your mirror can't show you what happened. This energy responds to only three sources in our conclusion. It responds to what you feel as emotion. It responds to what you think or to your thoughts. And it responds to the attitude you sustain from one day to the next. It's called the inner disposition of a thing. And that is mostly driven by your instincts, automatic instinctive drives, clocked into the human attitude. So if you look at this picture, you'll see something we've shown you over and over again in the triune brain example. There's the neocortex at the top of the brain. There's the limbic system in the middle of the brain, the midbrain, the yellow. And there's the reptilian brain at the bottom in blue, painted in blue. Top green, middle yellow, first layer blue. It's not that in reality. Those are just to give you help to identify the three areas of the brain. So this neocortex, the commander of the brain, the one in charge, the CEO, we might say, even instead of commander, the CEO of the brain is the area of the brain that enhances learning through stimulus analysis and motor control, memory and abstract and rational thought. Very limited in the memory department, though. It's really the second brain that's doing most of the memory's job. So the second part, the limbic, says the area of enhanced motivation and emotion, where stimuli are integrated with those of previous experiences and evoke motivational state. And the last part, the reptilian brain, is the area of the brain responsible for species-specific behavior that ensures survival in that present moment. For example, feeding and fighting. Defending yourself, feeding yourself so you can be here a few days more with the food that's being processed in your belly. Now, this is one particular scientist that is saying this. Last name Gould. You can look up his work if you want to. I gave you this example out of the other examples I've given you in the past so that you can compare the way both of them describe the triune brain. Now, these are the currents that feed this magnet. If you want to know why things are continuously magnetized in your direction, even if they're negative, especially if they're negative. If you want to know why some people just seem to be able to just, their economics and their finances and everything is always in place. They've been wealthy for decades now, maybe after having been poor for years. Why things just seem to keep, boy, he's got a new car every 2 years. Who is this guy? It's not the guy, it's the magnetism. And because he can magnetize these situations towards him, it doesn't mean that he knows what he's doing literally. Sometimes people just key into the right frequency and they just stay there. But on the most part, there are people on this earth who have insight into this on the conscious level. If you listen to a lot of the people that you even consider to be evil, I won't name any names, they understand this process. And they're able to stay rich while we stay poor. Good-hearted people, they're terrible-hearted people, but the Fitrah doesn't choose sides. The Fitrah doesn't care whether you're poor, rich. The Fitrah is mechanical. It's just concerned with the process. And the process in anybody's hands is going to work. So there is no object, there's no external ritual, there's no companion you can call that can charge this magnet for you. Nobody can come to you unless they gave you the money and the wealth. They can't come to you and just give you health because they're healthy. No, you have to readjust your frequencies until they match the frequencies of health and wealth. Whoever sustains serenity and an ordered mind walks inside a dense field, and compare the dense field to the dense garden. That's what Jannah is. It's a garden that is so dense and replenished with garden stuff, leaves and foliage and fruits and vegetables and all of that. It's so replenished with that beauty that you can't see the soil beneath it. You can't see what's producing. Where's it coming from? All we know is there's green stuff. I don't see any brown, anything. I don't see any soil. You got to move back the leaves and the branches before you can see the soil that is growing out of. This is our human life. So when you see that density in your personal agenda, that density is your protection. What comes from outside meets resistance before it touches you. So again, final point. If you want to know how to protect yourself in this life from those things that don't necessarily have to come your way, it's only coming your way because you are magnetizing it in your direction. I know that sounds harsh, but it only sounds harsh to people who are stuck in their emotional mind. You hear me? It only sounds harsh to the people who are being controlled by their emotions. Once you come up out of your feelings, as a ruler over you, I'm talking about, your feelings are just your assistant. They're not supposed to be ruling you. Allah tells you in the Quran, that the worst of creatures are those who let their ahwa, extreme emotions, their extreme lusts and desires, their lower desire, when they let that become their ilah, their God, they're the worst of creatures on earth. It didn't even call Satan the worst of creatures on earth. The Quran doesn't even call Satan that. It's because it's not because the Satan it's speaking at is speaking to is this same Satan, and he's in you and me. If you allow him to lay there and fester and grow and take over your garden. I hope you're not still thinking about some spook creature outside of you, red and horns in the head or pitchfork, or I don't know what your concept of hell and the garden and Adam and I don't know what your concept is, but I'm telling you, I've come into a much more intelligible idea of what Allah is speaking to. And I know that Allah is speaking not just in the universe, but he is speaking probably more importantly to me directly if he says that he is closer to you than your own jugular vein. That vein in your neck that's feeding nutrition to your brain from the heart. And then back from the brain to the heart and back to the brain from the heart. Allah says he's closer to you than that. So he's managing your life as the sustainer of that life. Now that's a package that I like to carry around. Allah is with me. He tells you in the beginning of the Quran, Bismillah, Bismi means with Allah's signature, with Allah's name. You're carrying Allah's authority right now and you don't even know it. That's what Bismillah means. You are carrying the authority of the source creator with you. He's not you, but he's right beside you. And he's right beside you as the one who is guiding you personally and is able to protect you against any harm, any foul play. If you would just stay in connection, in contact with his fitrah. Just stay in contact with his frequency. Don't let the fitrah frequency fall beneath a certain scope, beneath a certain temperature. Don't let it fall until it becomes cold. Or don't let it raise up so high that it becomes burning hot. No, give the midway. Allah speaks about the midway. Salatul Wusta. That's the most important temperature on that gauge. You got your thermometers and you got your thermostats. You want the one that controls the atmosphere, not the one that is responding to outside dictated temperatures. So that's all I have for you today in terms of the information. I'm going to open up just in case anyone has any questions. You might just want to study it for the next 7 days and report back when you've gathered enough information where you can report accurately. But if there's anyone who does want to, I'm just trying to get my picture back here. If there's anyone who does want to comment, feel free to do so. I see Muhammad Ali in the picture.
Assalamu alaikum. Just very sober. Praise be to Allah.
Alhamdulillah.
And very balanced. Praise be to Allah.
Yeah, and those were two themes of this lecture. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. When Allah speaks about the word sabr, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ is one example. They translate it as patience, but to show you how thoroughly run through the Quran has become with false connotations. and how Lunetics as a linguistic science has in many instances saved us from the ignorance of the world that gave us false language. When you compare the word sabr with the word sober that you just mentioned, you have a hint at to what kind of patience this is talking about. It's not just being patient and waiting for things or somebody coming against you, aggressing against you, and you're not doing anything because you're just being patient and waiting for God. No, you're being sober in your movement. You're being balanced in your outlook. That's the kind of balance we want. That's the kind of sobriety we're looking for. So thank you very much for that comment. Is there anyone else who has a question or comment? Feel free.
Yeah, instructor. Yeah, I've had this subject on my mind for a while, and you did say a few things that I connected to with also the word magic and the word magnetic, right? They coincide with each other, and
Certainly do.
the Quran is magnetic because Allah calls, and you said like the magnetic is a female force, and Allah calls the Kitab the mother of the book.
That's right.
And then the
Umul
mother of the
Kitab.
book, the middle surah is Al-Hadid, which is iron, which is the
Yes, and
main
it's
principle
magnetic.
in
That's right.
magnetism.
That's right.
So it's
And you know,
holding everything together. So,
and magnetism is the only element that doesn't come from Earth. Did you know that?
right.
Allah
We
says
sent down.
he
Yeah.
revealed, right? He sent down magnetism.
Mhm.
So these are things for us to consider as Muslim thinkers, contributing to this new opening of the sciences.
And one other thing, because you said that that aura is an oval shape,
Yes.
it's giving kind of like birth to something.
It's a
And so
womb. That's
and
right.
so
Every
and so
egg is a womb.
and so they flip it. So but where does the president sit? What's his office called?
The Oval Office. You got it.
And
You
then
got it.
you go to the Kaaba, and what shape is that stone?
Oval.
So they know they're just flipping it on us.
They know, but they want us to not know. I'd hate to
Now
say
we know.
anything more nefarious about those characters.
Yeah.
Either they know, either they don't know and they're just plain, or they're just dumb, or they do know and they're just plain dumb. Either way,
Mhm.
they're dumb.
They're dumb.
People don't like when I talk about, oh, those are leaders, those are sheikhs and shakers, and you shouldn't be talking about them. You've had 1,000 years to get this correct, knowing the language. So if you haven't, and Allah came along and gave it to a Negro, or gave it to some outsider, you know, why are you you should be jumping for joy that he saved the logic, that he saved some wisdom for people who could not have possibly gotten this without his help,
Mhm.
because the world did not want to come and help us with anything. And when they think we're going astray, they criticize us to no end. So just be helpful. That's all I'm asking for people in the world of shakedom. Just be helpful. Help us for real.
Mhm.
If we're incorrect, then you have to come with the right disposition. You can't just come with the guidance. You have to come first with the balance, as we said. That's how Khalifas are created. Come first with the So'etahu. See? And then breathe the spirit into them. The problem they're having is that they can't help but just breathing all over us without giving us any balance, any sense of balance, except look at us. We'll show you the way to go. Those days are over. And don't think that I don't love them. I have a lot of love for her. I say that to reach the broader ones, not to reach every individual. It's every individual. There are many scholars out there who I have their books and I read their books and we talk to them sometimes on this program. Wonderful people. But believe me, there's something in their discourse that's diametrically different than what you're hearing on the most part from these other clowns, I call them, that sit on these websites and give these lectures in the full beard and the thawb and the turbans and all of that. And they sit there trying to tell women that they're the most evil creatures on this earth because Allah created them that way. And we need the men to help civilize these women. And we can have as many of you as we want because you're here for our pleasure. They don't tell you that in words, but that's what they're saying beneath their breath. So we have to just wise up. That's all. And I'm looking at this audience right here, and this is definitely not even the majority of the people who are listening right now. I see your names behind the screen. None of you are old, too old to establish yourself in this knowledge with understanding. As long as you have a functional brain, keep listening to Karima, you'll have a functional brain. As long as you have that, I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. I don't care if you got one eye, if you're Sammy Davis Jr., it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Whatever your infirmities are, you can work on them. There are different things you could be doing to strengthen those areas where you're weak. I'm trying to work on myself with that. Not trying, I'm doing it. I'm working on myself with that. Whatever physical maladies or ailments or a little pain that I didn't have a few years ago in my hip, oh, where did this come from? Yeah, I got to work with that. I shouldn't just accept it. Sometimes there's a T that will get rid of it. And you don't even know about it because you don't ask questions or because you don't try the first few things that we suggested. So do these things. This is assistance that Allah is sending us. If you're walking with Allah, do you not think that if you start limping, He's not going to help carry you? Now, if you don't choose to walk with Allah, be Ism Allah, if you don't choose to walk with His signature, with His permission to do things, then when you start limping, that's on you, partner. Call an Uber, because you're not really depending on Allah's help. The Nasr of Allah. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ. Look at when Allah gives you things in twice, in two times. The help of Allah and the victory. Those things are intricately connected. You want to know when that help comes? The rest of the surah will give you the answer. And the answer is not in the crowds that show up. It didn't say in Islam. It said in the deen of Allah. It didn't say anything about deen of Islam. Because that's a label. And all labels, unfortunately, separate us. The deen of Allah could be over there in Siberia somewhere as a practice, as a mentality, as a spirituality, as an emotionality. You have to look for the consistency in frequencies everywhere you go. You got to look for that frequency. That's how you learn to get along with people because you are all essentially the same soul. Min nafsin wahida. I don't know how they missed that, even with the mistranslations of the Quran. They couldn't hide it that thoroughly, that all of us are created from one nafs. So study the nafs. Don't wait for them to tell you that in the masjid, madrasa. Don't wait for them to tell you that in the khutbah on Friday. Look for what you have in common with another human person. And start with looking to see whether they're balanced or not. I had to cut somebody else today on my YouTube videos. He's just creating an unnecessary, what do you call it? Unnecessary problems, mess, trying to go back and forth with me about what he thought I was saying. Thinks I'm trying to get famous off of him, and nobody knows who he is. He said, "Who are you, instructor, for me to try to get famous?" I never said you were trying to get famous off of me. Or I'm trying to get famous. How could I get famous off of you and you're not famous? And the same, how can you get famous off of me and I'm not, whoever, Obama, or I don't, who do you think I am? But I saw after 2 or 3 weeks of that he wasn't going anywhere with that. So I just cut him off. Now he can't make comments because I don't waste time with people. I don't waste that much time with people like that because I know they either have something emotionally wrong with them or they have some strict intellectual thing that I'm not going to label going on upstairs, and they have to. I ask Allah to help him work through that, but I don't have the time to work with you, and I've done that to a couple of people so far, and they deserve it because we got progress to make. We got places to go, people to see, and things to get involved in if we're going to get the prize at the end of the road. You have to get involved. Okay? So if there are no more questions, we're going to shut down, disappear for a minute, for 7 days, inshallah. And remember now, if you want to make any presentations, all you have to do is call me, set up a date, give me a subject. Just remember that next Sundays is dedicated still to part 2 from our instructor, Baina Hamid. She also carries the title of Master Instructor. Listen back to her carefully, and you'll know why I gave her that title, Master Instructor. So continue to listen, because some of you are not that far from, when I say master, I'm not talking about like in the guru sense or some supreme, figure or something that you're supposed to now, bow down to when you see them or talk to them. They're still you. They're just in the process of mastering a particular level of logic. That's all. A particular way of thinking that kicks in automatically without you having to give them a push in that direction. And obviously, she has done enough research to be able to rattle this off in her sleep almost. And where she goes a little bit off the track, then we bring her back on the track, but you don't take her off of the track. That's called waste. And Allah says He does not like the wasters. And a lot of times we waste because we're jealous of people. We don't want to see them on top. We don't want to see other people giving them some level of praise. So we have to protect ourselves against that. And we protect ourselves against that by knowing what the ego does. We'll talk on that next Sunday also. We have to know what position the ego is occupying. The ego is not evil, but the ego is as close to Iblis as you're going to get from what the Quran is saying. Iblis is the ego. You don't see Allah throwing him with a pitchfork into the hellfire. Allah just questions him. And he absolves himself of the blame. Say, I just called them. That's all your ego is doing. It's just calling you because it thinks it's protecting you. It thinks you need it. It thinks you need to have people say to you, yes, you're the greatest. Remember that? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the greatest of them all? And he expects for she or whoever it was asking that question, expected for the mirror to turn back and say, you are, of course. Look at you. But as soon as he steps away from the mirror, the very reflection itself disappears. So be careful what you choose to reflect. Just know that the reflection is not you. The shadow is not you. Allah speaks about the shadow in the Quran, but the shadow, Carl Jung did a lot of work on the shadow. The psychologist I'm talking about. A lot of work on the shadow. But the shadow is not you. And if it weren't for the fact that you were standing in a certain level of appreciable sunshine, you wouldn't even know you had a shadow. If it were totally dark outside all the time, you wouldn't even know you had a shadow. But your first clocks began as shadows to detect objects in its environment. So the shadow is not bad, just like the shadow is not bad. The shahada, which I believe is where they got the word shadow. That testimony, because what's a shadow doing? It's testifying to the existence of light. If there were no light, there'd be no shadow. So it's a testimony from Allah. But there's no second testimony in there. There's no shahadatain in that description because there's only a need for the first shadow. It's the same shadow created in the same way all over the earth. So don't continue to let this world of academia fool you. Stay strong in what you discover, in what you uncover. Check it by those people that you believe know better than you. And in the future, near future, you'll be seeing other scholars come join us. I don't like the word scholar for myself. Some of them don't like it. But, if whatever floats your boat, they say, right? So if you'd like to be called a scholar, I'll give you that title until you decide to grow into some other title. I like instructor. For me, it just means internal structure, somebody who's bringing you internal structure. And how you're structured internally depends on what you like, how you build your house. Isn't that supposed to be like what you like? When you're paying all of these thousands of dollars to have somebody build your house, you don't let them dictate to you what your house should look like. You say, well, here's the plan, here's the floor plan, here's how I want my kitchen at least, or my basement. I'm working in my basement, I need this. Or, I like my yard to look like this or to be this big. When you're building a house, you're supposed to decide the dimensions. So what do you think should happen when you're building the house called the human house, the human being? The human being has a particular dimension. The human being has a particular level of quantity and quality. How many bedrooms do I want? That's quantity. How large do I want them? What do I want to be in that room? Where do I want the window so I can get that cross breeze in the summertime? That's quality. And once you go for the quality, once you go for the quality is built into it. Some people want their houses built so that, when the sun comes up, it's facing the way that they think it should face for them to make their Fajr Salat or whatever. I want it to come up in the east, I want it to come up in the northwest. And they have their houses built on the plot of land that faces what they think is the most advantageous position. And that's commonsensical, right? That's common sense that you would do that. Or you don't want your house built where the majority of the day is going to be dark because you got big bushes and trees in the front yard that are covering the window so the light can't get through. And then at night, you got the open air in the backyard and there's nothing out there to see. So some people's homes are completely surrounded by darkness. You don't want that either. You want some shadow. You want some level of testimony that there's some light somewhere in the universe. So be balanced, that's all. So wait ونفخت روحي. Carry that spirit with you. As I greet you in the greetings of peace. Salamun alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Thank
Salam
you all for
alaikum,
being
everybody.
Walaikum assalam, everybody.
Alaikum assalam.